As the leader of the Booner Path, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff, Booner, Lucas. It is Monday, January 6th, and we are back. Let me change this. Look at the little blue design. Like it. It was live earlier. Thanks to everyone who joined that show. We are here. Victory Monday. Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings. They're the number one seed. They are the NFC North champions. And now the Vikings, who are 14-3, got to go on the road to the Los Angeles Rams. So big implications. Lions get it done. Now you get a bye week, boys. Feels good. Feels very good.
It does. Hey, Klotz, can I get some? Hey, let's get some energy, boys. Lions. Hey, it's Victory Monday. Jeff Iafrate. Klotz. Victory Monday, boys. Hey, it's a beautiful day. The people who are joining us. Hey, back-to-back NFC North champs, boys. You know what feels really good, too? The Booner Path starting to look very good. Because, Klotz, what did we say about the Booner Path? All year long. It runs through Detroit. You get the 2 home games in Detroit. You get the 1 seed. You're automatically going to the Super Bowl. That was the path all along. And when you get to the Super Bowl, you give yourself a chance to win a Super Bowl. And that's all that matters here in Detroit right now this year. Hey, I've said it, boys. Job's not finished. Time to get this thing rolling here. I'm pumped up. There was a lot of positives out of the game yesterday. I feel like I've like the 24 hours waiting until the show today. I'm absolutely juiced up. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk some ball, talk some Lions, boys.
I don't know about you fellas, but just as a Victory Monday, like I think this week feels better than the first playoff win. And I know it may be weird, but what it means for the Detroit Lions, just because they need this bye week, yeah. But then the order and the way that they dominated the Minnesota Vikings last night, Sam Darnold, the hero of Minnesota that should be an MVP candidate, Brian Flores, the guy who's going to stop Jared Goff and Ben Johnson, even though he never has. And you just see all the narratives go right for the Detroit Lions and all the narratives veer left for the Minnesota Vikings. And all week, everyone thought it was going to go the other way around. People in the city, people in national media, they've been riding for the Detroit Lions all year long. Even though they knew the defense was going to be a problem. But for some reason, this week in Ford Field, they thought that the Minnesota Vikings, even though they dropped the last 4, were going to come into Detroit, steal the NFC North, steal the NFC, and walk out of there as the 1 seed. And to see that the Lions won in that way, seeing guys like Anzo coming back, he looks like he didn't miss a beat.
Unbelievable, dude.
Animal out there. And then you see the stardom of Jahmyr Gibbs and why Brad Holmes was so confident taking that man 12th overall. I mean, like, I do not care what anybody has to say. So probably the best game I've watched as a Detroit Lions fan in my lifetime.
I mean, you're seeing it now. The Lions are a legit organization. They are legit. They're here, and you're going to see over the next couple of years more and more coaches get plucked. You're going to see players. You're not going to be able to keep everyone, but this team is not only a Super Bowl contender, but Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. I talked a little bit about it today, but it's crazy to see how far this regime has come. I mean, we've been through how many regimes for the Detroit Lions, and every regime seems to go the same. It's always disappointment. It's always frustration. It's always failure. And Sheila Hamp, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, in just a couple of years have turned this team to a team who got their, ironically enough, first win against the Vikings after going 0-10 to now beating the Vikings to go now 15-2 and have the number 1 seed. Like, kudos. I know we say it enough, but I mean, kudos to Brad and Dan. What Brad's done through the draft has been the biggest reason. The talent is there. I mean, you see, and someone posted a screenshot. I can't remember who it was exactly, but it was the draft. Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, and then you had was that Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell.
Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell. Yeah.
Just those first 4 players. Think about it. Brad Holmes, first 4 picks, and all those guys are very good players. Guys are going to be all pros. Like, Brad's finds a way consistently to bring in talent. And then, of course, Dan Campbell, being the coach he is, hiring assistant coaches around him. And, of course, Dan Campbell, coach of the year, he's been doing an amazing job. But just those two together, man, this team, and we talk about it all the time. Jared Goff now, head coach, quarterback, GM. The Lions have those 3. Check, check, check to be a contender for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And you even look like when you stack up, I'm sure even got a guy like Alex Van Ginkel, who's a free agent and he's joining this Minnesota roster. He's pretty talented. Like, I'm not going to deny. I don't think either of you guys either will say the same thing. Like, Minnesota's their roster is extremely talented, but the Detroit Lions is more talented, especially when you look at the big name acquisitions they had this offseason. Kevin Zeitler, I'll give you, but like Carlton Davis, he wasn't out there. Everything that they have is homegrown. So if you're another team, and even when you see the culture too, like you have nothing but probably to envy the Detroit Lions right now. If you're another player, like the NFC, like imagine being TJ Hawkinson last night, 2 for 9, had 2 big drops. He was basically a non-factor along with pretty much every other Vikings playmaker. Him watching from the Minnesota Vikings sideline, just being like, wow, this is what I missed out on. I had to get drafted in the first round of this team when it was at the absolute bottom. And now seeing that this is what everybody around the NFL outside the Kansas City Chiefs is going to try to replicate. Like everybody's going to look at the Detroit Lions formula and like how just same thing with the New England Patriots. And they're going to try to do what the Detroit Lions are doing right now. So they're setting the precedent. And you just see like time and time again, players step up when they need to, whether it's on the offensive side or defensive side. And that goes on coaching again. So just this whole organization, check.
Everything.
The only thing that's like the glaring, like, oh, that box wasn't checked as injuries, but you can't control that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the players that are playing too. It's not even like these aren't stars. Like a lot, like, yeah, you have some dudes, but like you have just like guys who are stepping up. Like this defensive line yesterday, like you have just dudes that, aren't supposed to be in those positions because Hutch and Marcus Davenport and all these different guys. And like, guess what? Like they're stepping up, dude. It's the culture and what's built. Like, the example I thought of today was in New England. Like they fired Rod Mayo and like he only got a year and everyone's all freaking out, only got a year. But it's just like you're at the point in the NFL to where like you see like a head coach like Dan Campbell starts 3-13-1 his first year, 1-6 the next year. But the thing is, it's like, and you could tell like from games like this last night, like when you have a head coach that's like the right fit. That he's like building the right culture. He's building like the pillars. Everything about it is correct. And like Sheila knew that from the start. Like that, I go back all the time to that press conference that Sheila had after the Lions started 1-5 or 1-6. I think it might have been after 1-5. They lost again and then they started turning around. But like she came out to the media and was like, listen, like you guys just have to be patient. Like we have the right people in place. And you look at franchises around the NFL that are going through, coaches here, like just turnover. Like they're just turning coaches over. And like you look at that and you're like, yeah, they just aren't finding the right guy in place. And like the Gerard Mayo thing, I'm sure they found out instantly within the first year. Yeah, like those pillars and it's just not going to work. And, Sheila realized it instantly, like, hey, at some point this is going to work because these guys know what they're doing. They're building the culture. It all goes down to last night. And then you go like look at it and you're like, I mean, this team has a legit chance. They're Super Bowl contenders. They legit are 3 games away from winning a Super Bowl, 3 wins away. This is a team that's won 15 games all year. All you have to do is win 3 more games and you win a Super Bowl in Detroit. Like that, it's crazy to put that in perspective, but like they're that close. I know last year you're 2 wins away. You're 3 wins away. A year later, you're sitting here 3 wins away, and you're about to be right back in the spot you were last year after 1 more win. Like that is, it's like it's starting to get a little bit real in Detroit, where it's all right. Here we go, boys. Like it's crunch time. It really is.
No pun intended, Boone.
No pun intended for that one.
Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, just the way they've won, they show up in big games. I mean, it was a massive game, and they show up for it. You could see the Vikings were not ready for that game at all.
No.
And I don't know if it's because of the game the prior week, and I don't know. They beat the Packers. They thought that was their Super Bowl. I have no idea. But for whatever reason, the Lions showed up with less. They showed up as a true team, a true contender with less than the Vikings. Like the Vikings they were the more healthier team, and they just didn't do anything at all on both sides. Well, I mean, the storyline's Sam Darnold, but that defense got torched. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs ran all over him in the second half. Mm-hmm. First half, it was a little more lower scoring, but that Vikings team, that's the difference. That's why the Lions are better than the Vikings. Like the Vikings aren't on the same tier. I mean, that's why when we've done our top 10 Tuesdays, never had them close to the Lions, even though I thought the Vikings were good. But those type of games right there we just saw last night is the reason. Like the Lions have played in some playoff games, played an NFC Championship game. I mean, this Vikings team, led by Sam Darnold, that was his biggest game of his career. So
Dude,
they just weren't ready for the moment. They weren't ready for the moment at all.
Even then, like, credit to the Lions too, because that's like a situation with the Lions we've talked about all year. And Jeff, like, we've had these conversations all year to where, like, the Bills game, like, obviously you dropped that game, but we've seen so many different scenarios like the last 2 seasons with the Lions, and they just keep finding ways to win. Like last night, like, you could say, yeah, they won by a lot, but like it was a 10-6 game at halftime, and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, what's going on? And then they just find a way. Like, okay, let's adapt to the way this game is being played tonight, and let's do it. And I think that's something that not a lot of teams have. I think, honestly, I'm just going to be quite frank. There's 2 teams in the NFL right now that currently can play football the way that the Detroit Lions do. And in any game, any scenario, they can adapt to win a game. That's the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's because of the quarterback and the coaching staff that they have. And I think it comes down to, like, this coaching. Like, they put masterclass coaching game, like, together. Like, it's like not just AG, but like Ben Johnson, Dave Fitt, Dan Campbell. It starts from the top with Dan Campbell, like the game plan going into it. Okay, if this isn't working, this is turning into a running game. We thought it was going to be a shootout. Boom. Okay, halftime. Let's adjust. Now we're going to find a way to win the game in the ground, and we're going to get this thing rolling, and we're going to figure this out. And they just know how to do it. And it's like, okay. And then next week, if they end up having to get into a shootout and Jared Goff has to throw for 500 yards, guess what he's going to do? They're going to adapt, change, and do it. And it's like, it's so hard to beat a football team like that. And that's where I start to turn into, like, hey, I mean, as I'm talking it out, it's like, I feel like you're just going to see a Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions Super Bowl, because, like, I can't, like, the Bills, I think the Bills should be in the Super Bowl. But it's like the Chiefs are going to adapt and find a way to win that game. And it's like, and then you're going to get into a game in the Super Bowl where you're sitting there and you're like, these are the 2 best teams in football. They both have the best coaching staffs in football, 2 of the best quarterbacks playing at the highest level, the weapons, the defense. It's just like, okay, here we go. And that's where I think credit's due to Dan Campbell and the Lions. Like, I do think the Vikings team's a hell of a team, and I think they have a chance to beat the Rams on Sunday night or Monday night. And I'm starting to convince myself that they will. But I just think it's like, man, maybe you have to take a step back and, like, this coaching staff, man, they've done a hell of a job from week 1, finding ways to win every single week. And even the losses, like 1 for 7 in the red zone. Okay, what do they do the next couple of weeks? They're perfect in the red zone for weeks after that. The Bills, the loss. Okay, defensively, they're bad. Now look what they just did and turn things around with Enzo coming back. It's like they just keep adapting. It's credit to them. That's why I'm so confident that, going to win the Super Bowl, or at least playing in the Super Bowl. With them, just because this coaching staff, dude, they deserve all the credit in the world.
Yes, well, speaking of the coaching staff, one of the coaches, Aaron Glenn, had a hell of a day. I mean, that man, I don't know what, and whenever you see the Aaron Glenn photo of him chilling on the bench, it says it all. It means the guy just the guy just cooked. That's what he did yesterday.
Love seeing those pictures, dude.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, the defense, I easily the best defensive performance all year, like, no doubt, based on who they were facing, the stakes of the game, and what the defense did. And I have checked some of these some of these statistics out. What Aaron Glenn did. Sam Darnold, 18 of 41, 166. Justin Jefferson, I mean, he had like 8-9 targets, 3 catches. 3 of 13 on third downs, 0 for 4 in the red zone, 10 quarterback hits, 0 TDs allowed. I mean, this is like 85 Bears performance. Like, crazy. This is like ridiculous. What they were able to. It was. You
asked for a defense, Jeff. You got your wish.
They played. I mean, they played extremely well. There's nothing to argue there. Not allowing a touchdown, is that sustainable? No, but can they continue to perform very well? I don't. With AG, Dan mentioned in the last week after the game that he's confident with AG's game plan for the Vikings. I mean, the dude, that game plan, whatever that man was cooking up, that's elite. And then after you're seeing all that, we'll get to it later, but now the man's getting interviewed for every head coaching job in the NFL. So hell of a performance from AG and that defense, man. And I'll say this about the defense. I said it, how I felt there was a little pulse left. That's where I was with this team, because the defense, I believe you need a defense to win a championship. It's hard for an offense just to carry you all the way there and win it all. Okay. You need a defense of some sort. Okay. And with the injuries they sustained, with what we've seen over the past 4 or 5 games, I was concerned. That game, does it give you more confidence after yesterday? It does. Am I going to sit here and just like the Men in Black thing where you just boop and forget everything I've seen? No. But I will say that performance, fellas, right before the playoffs, that's what you want to see heading into the postseason. That's how the note you want to leave off on before a bye week. The boys get a rest, and then whoever they play is whoever they play. And then there's not too many teams in the NFC. I think the Lions will be with fine. But that defense yesterday, yeah, I'll admit, that pulse, it's increased for me, fellas.
And then that pulse better be hitting pretty fast right now, Jeff. I'm just going to be honest with you.
If they perform like that, if that defense looks like that,
they're winning the Super Bowl hands down. If their defense looks like that,
they're beating every team.
That's a top 5 defense.
Beating every team.
And this is what it is. And you know what, Jeff, you said it. I'll say this too, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, and someone can correct me. Just from the football that I watched this season in the NFL, I've tried to watch other games and other teams. What AG did yesterday was single-handedly the best performance by a defensive coordinator in the NFL all season long. That was the best defensive performance I've seen out of a team in a game of football, like in a full football game from start to finish. When you're talking about the how big the stakes were of that game, you're looking at it and you're like, all right, who's going to perform? That defense came out, and AG, there's not a defensive coordinator that put a game plan together as good as AG did yesterday versus the Minnesota Vikings. Not one. And I think, like, at that point, AG, man, like, hats off. Hey, you guys got some hats on. Tip of the cap, huh?
Tip of the cap, huh?
Tip of the cap.
Yeah.
He deserves it, dude. And that man, like, he was going to get a head coaching job no matter what. And he went out there and he even gave himself another opportunity. Like, we're going to talk about it later. Like, all these job offers he's getting, like, he probably added 4 or 5. He's probably going to get an offer from everyone just because of what he did last night. And Jeff, I get what you're saying. You want to see it longer. Let's not forget, AG had this defense, again, with 13 guys on IR at one point in this season, holding teams to no touchdowns for 12 straight quarters. We tend to forget that, and we tend to forget that stretch of football that they had defensively from, what was it, week 12, I think week 11, week 12, all the way to week 16 before they played the Bills, or week 15 before they played the Bills. So, like, AG has done this all year long. He's done it without Hutch. He's done it without big players. He's done it without role players. The man just keeps figuring it out. I'm pretty confident after seeing what I saw yesterday that they're going to be able to figure this thing out for the playoffs, Jeff. And to me, it's not like, hey, you need to do what you did last night. They don't. Like, last night was incredible. Your offense isn't going to probably have another game like they did yesterday through the playoffs. They're probably going to take a step forward because that was brutal in the first half. You can't see that offense doing that again. But if you get 50% of that defense last night in the playoffs, you're still winning the Super Bowl. Like, you are. Like, if you, again, I put the number at like 24 or 27. If you hold teams under 24 or 27 points in the playoffs, you're winning the Super Bowl. That Lions offense last night was terrible, and they still scored 30 plus. They still dominated. And that's where it's like, okay, they played a bad game and still put 30 up. Okay, imagine if they play the Vikings again. They're going to beat them 40-24. They're going to beat them 45-24. They're not going to have another dud like that. So, listen, I was pretty confident Lions are going to go to the Super Bowl. My confidence level went from probably like a 7, 8 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 to where it's like, okay, I'll see you guys in New Orleans. Here we go. If that defense, again, if that defense has 50% of that and AG coaches the way he did yesterday, it's over. There's no team in the NFC that can compete with the Lions. Not one.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and after the second half of the 49ers game, it seems like the first half they're getting sliced up, but in the second half they came out, they gave up some big plays, but as far as the touchdowns, they stopped. And it seems like they brought that formula into the game against the Minnesota Vikings. And I think where you really saw success is, one, Alex Anzalone coming back, but two, just seeing Amik Robertson on the outside and leaving him there. Especially when Terrion got hurt, you had no choice but to leave Amik. The way that Amik was able to play on the outside, that's the formula that you should have. Play aggressive, mix it up between zone and man. Just keep everything. The whole game plan should just be to keep the quarterback out of rhythm. That's what AG did. Not only that, I don't know what it was, but it seemed like the Lions defense knew the Minnesota Vikings playbook better than the Vikings did. Like, it seemed like the Detroit Lions linebackers, safeties, and corners knew what the play call was before going in. So obviously Aaron Glenn had a great game plan going into it. But I'm not really nervous going into the playoffs because the Minnesota Vikings is probably the best offense you're going to see in the way that they're built. Outside of the Washington Commanders, you're going to go up against a really good quarterback or a really high-level operating quarterback. Like, I wouldn't consider Baker Mayfield elite, but he's playing at an elite level this year. And he's got Mike Evans, he's got Jalen McMillan, he's got 2 good running backs. outside of the Commanders, like I said, they got an all-pro and Terry McLaurin. They don't really have another wide receiver too. Every other team is like that. So if you can be able to, like Boone said, 50% of what you got last night, give up 20 points, I think this Detroit Lions defense is definitely capable of doing that and creating some turnovers. The fact that AQM, El-Quadid Muhammad was getting a sack, Zadarius Smith was getting a sack, and then you see that Sam Darnold was just under pressure the whole night. He was uncomfortable. There was multiple times where he ran out of the pocket. The first matchup, he ran for 39 yards. Sam Darnold was a complete non-factor with his legs, and normally you wouldn't expect him to, but for the Minnesota Vikings, they knew that's something they could take advantage of. If you go back and you look at the Detroit Lions on tape, when you look at Caleb Williams, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, they all did some work on the ground. Sam Darnold didn't at all, so they found what they have to do. They found the play style. They found the schemes. Just stick to it in the offense. Get those wrinkles out in the first half. I thought the offensive line didn't look too good in the first half and back-to-back weeks. They get that sewed out after this bye week. You can't touch this team in the NFC.
That's such a one-off, too. I would say this, the offensive line, like especially with the week off, like that offensive line for 3 straight games, if you get a week off, next 3 games, it's like, all right, those guys are going to be healthy. Defensively, like, and Jeff, the one thing that we talked about all the time that I saw yesterday with AG is like the red zone and like forcing the Vikings to go 0 for 4 in the red zone. I went and looked. I was interested to see, like, with Anzo, what was the red zone numbers with Anzo? How did it look before he went down? And it's genuinely – it's pretty shocking. Like, so week 6 through 11, when they were playing their best football, first 5 weeks of the season, I think we can all agree that was like such a one-off. Like, they were trying to get in the rhythm offensively, defensively. It was weird. But week 6 through 11, they held teams 5 for 16 in the red zone, right? They got 11 stops in the red zone out of 16 times in the red zone. That's big time. Like, and again, that's huge. When Anzo goes down, weeks 13 versus week 7 through week 17 up until last week, 16 for 21 in the red zone. 16. That's drastic. And then Anzo like comes back. Literally flipping it. And then Anzo comes back, and then boom, 0-4 in the red zone. They had the ball. It wasn't even just the red zone, dude. It was the goal line. They were inside the 10-yard line 3 times inside the and you know what it is too. And I was thinking about it earlier today when I was like I was looking at stats trying to figure it out. And I need to go back and rewatch the game maybe tonight or in the morning. But like one thing is, it's like you have Alex Anzalone. 1, he is unbelievable in coverage. You saw what he did versus TJ Hawkinson. And 2, guess what? In the red zone, when you have Anzo, your run defense is there, even if you don't have a lead. They didn't even
try to run it, it seemed like, at the goal line.
They did a couple times, I think, and I think it got stuffed, and they went away from it instantly. Like, they were like, all right, this isn't happening. Like, they have their guys there. Like, and the defensive line, I stood on business last week and said Anzo's going to be able to call plays. He's going to be able to change, where guys are and the gaps in the defensive line. It felt like that was like known because they were stopping the run outside of one run. One big run, they stopped the run. And in the red zone, they literally forced it, and they said, hey, every single time you're in the red zone or goal line, we're forcing you to throw it to Justin Jefferson or make a play. And we're going to still send 5 guys at you. And they couldn't.
They sent him to Amik Island. I think
they couldn't. Yeah, I mean, the thing, when you watch it too, Klotz, the whole game, and this was interesting. They had a safety or a linebacker with Amik and Justin Jefferson every time. But Amik was locking up, but they always had someone there. And then the other safety was with Jordan Addison. Like, they were like both safeties, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson. And that game, I think that's an AG thing, being like, all right, this is how we're going to do it. And they had a safety on each side at each level, being like, one's for Jordan Addison, one's for Justin Jefferson. And it was smothering. It was nuts, dude.
Even Terry on, like, he had a solid game. He didn't give up any big plays, and he was there for a couple pass breakups. But kind of back to what you're speaking on Anzo, and I think everything you said spot on. But why it's even more glaring is you look at Anzo, to your point, what he does before the plays even called, getting everybody set up. But when you take him out, that's now one of your biggest links as far as, especially with no Rodrigo, you're bringing practice squad guys up. You got Germ out there. That's now the weakest link, and it's the basically the front piece of your run defense, and it's in the middle of the field for the pass defense. Like, at the goal line, you'll get the occasional fade to the Justin Jeffersons, the Mike Evans, the Jahmyr Chases, but most of the time, that's where tight ends eat. That's where running backs eat. And who's going to be covering and trying to stop all those plays? Alex Anzalone. So every time they're running right towards those edges, you saw, like, even against the Bears, like, they were attacking the edges. Well, now Alex Anzalone's there because even as Zadarius Smith could set the edge, they're cutting right back up, and there's a 2-3 yard gain. They're walking in the end zone. But now Alex Anzalone's there. When Alex Anzalone's there, guess who's right behind him in a better position? Jack Campbell. So I think Anzo, just to your point, Boone, that red zone defense, it's not all him. I think it's a very big part of the guys in the secondary, especially the safeties, but that's where it all starts.
It changes it drastically. That again, week 6 through 11, 5 for 16 with Anzo in. Week 13 to 17, 16 for 21. It's Anzo's, it's his presence, it's him calling plays out, and it's him just being the kind of the heart of the defense. I think in the playoffs you have him. And that's whether even if a team goes 2 for 5, like that's big time. Instead of like, dude, when I looked it up, I can name some of them here, boys. Like in that stretch of football, 1 for 1, 4 for 5, 5 for 7, 5 for 5. Like you take 2 of those away, you win the Bills game. Bills are 5 for 5 in the red zone. You take 2 away, you're literally you win that game by a possession or 2.
Shout out John Martin, by the way, $2. Thank you for that, John. He says shout out Joy Taylor.
I think
that's something.
I think he's talking about the video of Joy Taylor calling out Dan Campbell. I don't think he's talking about anything else.
Spot on, Boone.
Yeah, weird timing how that video came out today.
Yeah.
Big back for life.
I don't know what happened.
Appreciate you for the $5. So spending $2 million on tickets just to see your team get belt to ass is diabolical.
It's tough luck.
I mean, that is he ain't wrong. That's crazy work.
And half of them didn't even go. They just scalped again. Like they got the tickets because wasn't that the report, Boone, that a lot of the Vikings fan, like 1,000 of them, just resold the tickets to get some quick money? Because I mean, how many people are just able to just drop everything and go to Detroit right now? Like they announced it 2 days before the game, and like it's not the people from Minnesota probably not trying to go to Detroit like that.
Vikings perspective, just wasted $2 million. Donate that to a charity or something, dude. That didn't do anything. Should have just donated the money.
Bring back Sam Darnold on that deal.
Honestly, yeah, that's $2 million. That's another player. They instead of getting another player, they just said, "Hey, let's try and get our fans over to Detroit for a loss."
Just to get destroyed too. Like, I mean, Jesus. Let's. I got a video here at Anzalone speaking about him being back. So let's play this, and I'll give my thoughts on Anzo. But here's Anzo on his return.
Obviously it's going last and. Have the opportunity to run out of the tunnel, even, after being out for a long 6 weeks. It was a blessing. And, I love our fans. They're so supportive and they get excited when we need them. It was fun.
Anzalone being back is big. Okay. And because Jack Campbell was the highest graded linebacker on the Lions. So it helped Jack Campbell as well. I mean, obviously it helps him to have Anzo back. It's like his running mate. It's like Demont and Jahmyr. Or whoever you want to make the comparison to. So Anzalone being back does help. I made the joke last week that, he's not Ray Lewis. I mean, he might be Ray Lewis. I mean, the guy's impact is incredible. It just is. He's not the best linebacker in the league, but damn, he's great at what he does, which is just be that quarterback, make sure guys are in the right position. He led the team in tackles. Of course he was going to always. Like, it's just his presence is nice. And I talked about it today, and you nailed it too, Boone. Like, his presence in the run game is super important too. Yeah. Like, he fills gaps. He's always making the right reads. He's where he's supposed to be at all times. Like, when you have
miss tackles,
like Ben Neiman, like those guys are messing up reads, assignments. Like, Anzo's never giving you any of that. He's always where he's supposed to be.
Remember that? What was that game? I think it was the Bills. All of those linebackers all those linebackers that you loved, Klotzy. All those guys, dude, just every single time they tried to fill a gap, boom, they would miss a tackle, get blown up. They would get 10 more yards, 15 more yards. Am I going crazy or did
my camera just
okay? I was like, I think I'm going crazy over here, dude. I don't know what's happening. I'm drinking a coffee at 8:30 at night, and I was like, maybe I need to stop drinking coffee.
The ghost of Jamal Adams.
Yeah, shout out to Jamal Adams. He just liked all of our reels the other day.
Trying to make his way back onto the team
through crunch time.
He's doing God's work right now. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he does. But no, yeah, those guys miss tackles though, and it's like now you have a guy like Anzo who you can rely on. Jack Campbell you can rely on instead of just one guy you can rely on. Now you have 2, and then even with Germ at times, like as he's rotating in, or like Nowaski or Neiman, now that's your third guy. Like I rely, like I have a lot more faith of those 3 guys being your third rotating in and at that Sam spot or wherever you need them, than having them as your like 2. Like that's your second. Oh, that's your second linebacker there. That's going to have to make big time plays.
Yeah.
Like that's nerve wracking, especially going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you look at guys like you talked about Amik Robertson. Amik Robertson yesterday was, and I talked to you about this, Klotzy. Amik Robertson, is he better on the outside? You can't move him. Like just leave him out there, because he played outside corner for the Las Vegas Raiders. He came to Detroit. He's been playing at nickel, and he's very good against the run. I get that, but his performance at outside corner since he's gotten moved, he's just got to stay at that point. You either put Iffy at nickel, Brian at nickel, you find other ways. E-Man at nickel. Oh, maybe we'll get to see E-Man one day.
You're not seeing that.
He's probably done for the year. I'm not done, but like he's just
the E-Man experiment's over. But Amik Robertson he's way better on the outside.
Did you hear the Amik thing? I guess AG went to Amik on Tuesday, said, "Hey, we're putting you outside. We're putting you versus Justin Jefferson." And it was like one of those things where it's like it was an Aaron Glenn decision, being like, "Hey, this is the move we're doing." We had the conversation earlier in the week. I think Jeff and I did, and it was like, "Hey, you just put your best player on Justin Jefferson. I don't care matchup wise, nothing. It's just you put your best guy on him." And I think that was AG's mindset. Was I think that someone said it was Tuesday. Went up to him and said, "Hey, that's your job this week. It's Justin
he's been
Jefferson."
guarding him since LSU.
Yeah. So like
Even
you look at
before?
him and in high school, I saw the video of high school. So like for him to step up, Amik Robertson to go into that role this week and say, "I got this," put it on his back. I think they're going forward. You just say, "Hey, just be a dog out there. You have 3 more games left of the year. Find a way. Like just find a way." And if you get beat, at that point, boys, like if he gets beat at some point, like I really don't care. Like that's not where he was all year. He got moved to that position because of injuries, and he already did what he did versus Justin Jefferson and put you in the right position. So let him stay there. Let him get. If you play AJ, get that man on AJ Brown. Let him talk. AJ Brown's a hothead. Let him talk to AJ Brown for a little bit.
You put him on the AJ Brown, DK Metcalf's of the world. I like his chances of getting him outside their game. And I think to what you guys were saying, like the fact that he matched up with them in high school, match up with them in college, like he's not scared of Justin Jefferson. Like he knows who Justin Jefferson is and who he was. So I bet he was all for that assignment. And when you look at it, like there's been cornerbacks. He's 5'9", but a lot of people wanted Darius Williams to join the Detroit Lions as a corner. He plays on the outside. He's 5'9", so it's not like it's impossible to do. Obviously, there's going to be some disadvantages, but where I actually am completely comfortable with it was for like the plays in the first half where they threw a bubble screen to Justin Jefferson, or it might have been Jordan Addison, and he just sheds the block and he blows it up behind the line of scrimmage, and he's able to do that against the pass, against the run. And if when's the last time we've seen Justin Jefferson not just limited, but in a way like that, where it's basically the one, the only real big play that he had was the one where it was a delay of game. Ironically,
that was it.
Man coverage. Justin Jefferson on the outside. They motion him behind the trips and they run a crosser with them. Like that's damn near impossible to do with Justin Jefferson in man coverage. Outside of that, we have never seen that. Justin Jefferson's best games are against the Detroit Lions. So Amik Robertson on the outside, until proven otherwise, in my opinion, is the cornerback one of this team. You have Brian Branch, you have Iffy Melifonwu, you have Kirby Joseph. You can keep all 3 of those players on the field now. Keep your best 11 on the field. Terrion, it's going to be tricky to see what him's coming in the divisional round, but even I trust him at this point on the outside more than Terrion, even though Terrion's probably a better athlete, bigger in frame. But Amik, like we talked about, he came from the AFC West where you're going against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. So he's gone against elite quarterback play before, gone against guys like Keenan Allen or Rashee Rice on the outside. And if you need to bring him into the slot for a play or two, who gives a fuck? He can do it. Like Amik Robertson, for the deal that he's on, it's a bargain. Like it's going to be one of the better contracts, especially come playoff time.
I would like Amik to stay. I don't know when his deal's up. I don't know if he has another year.
He's 3 years, I believe.
Love it then. I love that fact then. Because Amik's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem on your defense. You're going to get into a position, Klotz, actually, and I credit you a lot to this too, because I think it was Amik that you actually said this earlier in the year, where it's like if he's playing well, it's going to be hard to take him out when guys start coming back, and you start seeing guys get healthy again. I don't see a world like even next year. Like, how do you take Amik Robertson off the field? He has found himself in one of the best football teams in the NFL. He wasn't like that big time of a player in LA or in Vegas, and he has found a spot and he has like found a home. And I think people in Detroit love him. I think the staff loves him. The players love him. Like, he's a great teammate. And it's like next year when you get to this position, when Carlton, if you re-sign him, or it's like, all right, where are you going to fit Amik in? Like, you're throwing back at nickel. Okay, like, where's that put Iffy? Because Iffy's been really good too. It's just like Amik's making hard. Like, he's going to make it a case to where it's like, hey, long term, he should be on this football team, on this defense.
Did you guys see the video of him talking post game? The quote that he dropped.
Oh, dude, unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it in Slack real quick to you, Jeff, if we want to play it. If not,
it's
big deal,
an all-time quote.
Great video.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I don't know if he's been sitting on that for a while or what, but it
might be something that he says all the time, and it just got public finally. But you can
have
tell in the video, like, guys behind him,
they're like, yeah.
Whoa.
They added that. They added that to the dialogue.
Like, yeah, I don't know where he put on the when porch. He said that, the whole locker room was like, oh, like, okay, yeah, this guy, that it's a bar. I'm gonna get it on a t-shirt, find a way. But yeah, Amik, you could tell, dude. The Lions continue to get this specific type of player. It's like guys that have been overlooked, or guys that he's got a lot of heart, something. And Amik fits right into that mold where he's just like, okay, this guy's just always been overlooked,
scrappy.
Yeah, just scrappy.
They just those guys like that just need an opportunity, and when they get one in a good position, they shine, and like you can see him shining. I love it too.
That was Alex Anzalone when he signed in Detroit. With that dude was raw. Like, he was playing. He was the third string linebacker in New Orleans, and like even his first year, I could not stand Alex Anzalone. Like, watching Alex Anzalone pissed me off because he'd always be in the right position, but he could never finish the play in pass coverage. It was terrible to watch. But what did he need? He just needed some confidence, because you could see he was around the ball all the time. Like, Amik is around the ball all the time. He was trying to create plays. He was trying to impact the play. But it was just a couple things that needed refined, that he needed coached up on. And now look at him. Like, Alex Anzalone, we were just talking about him. He's not an all-pro linebacker. He's probably a Pro Bowl level linebacker. He's a B-plus linebacker. But there's a couple games a year where he looks like an all-pro type of player. He looks like an A-plus linebacker. He's not, but he can play above that because he knows that he can trust everything with his coaching. When Aaron Glenn says something, he knows, I'm going to do whatever the fuck Aaron says because he's going to put me in a position to make a play. And what does he do? Makes a play. And you can see that. I could see the same type of thing happening with Amik over the next couple of years.
Hey, Steve Wild said this, and this isn't bad, Klotz. He said, I remember when Lukas said he was the worst linebacker in the league. I remember too. Like, I remember a lot of people. It's not even just Lukas. Early on, like when Dan Campbell first started, like that was like a thing. Like, everyone hated. I don't know. Say
he got re-signed,
but people were like, he wasn't. Obviously you're losing a lot of games, so people are going to blame someone, especially the way the defense was for a little bit. And it's completely like 180. Like, it's turned.
Yeah, everyone hated Anzo, and not in a bad way. He just when he first got here, it was rough, but he's been nothing but the complete opposite.
Up until about a year ago, everyone hated Jared Goff too, until they started changing his name. So it is what it is at that point.
Well, here's the quote from Amik. I mean, look at this. This.
I mean it from the bottom of my heart, man. I appreciate y'all, man, because y'all gave me a chance to showcase what I could do when they tried to bury me, dog. But they can't bury what come from the dirt. Hey, let's get that big one, man. Let's keep on working.
In the back with the black hoodie and the black.
Oh, like, okay. All right, Amik.
Over anybody's head.
That's unbelievable. What a
story from him, man.
I want to see real quick.
His story's awesome too. How he grew up and got to the league. He's I know his dad follows us as well. Comes from
shout out to his pops.
Yeah,
support the show. He's
got a great story, man. Amik Robertson, happy for that guy. Let's see. Rich Russell says, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like Kirby Joseph at first when he got here, but he's grown into the best safety in the league.
I mean, it's like that in any, I think, franchise. Like with fans, like you're like, there are players you're gonna like instantly, but there are dudes that it's like you have to grow to like, and I think it's like fair. Like, you have to earn the respect of a fan. As crazy as that sounds, but like fans, like diehard fans, they're like, they care a lot about the football team. Klotz, I know how much you love the Lions. Like, if there's a guy that's messing around, I don't like that dude. Like Will Harris, like, you're done. I don't want to see you ruining my football team's chances of winning a Super Bowl, and he was doing it. So
that's how Vikings fans on Sam Darnold right now.
Yeah, did you? I can't. I mean, I can.
They flipped everything.
But I got something later in the show for Sam Darnold, boys, so I'm not gonna. I got some. Hey,
I have never seen a fan base just switch opinions over one game. So
I think it's fair, though.
To their credit, yeah, he looked like Anthony Richardson out there. Like Anthony Richardson, honestly, posed more threat to the Detroit Lions defense than Sam Darnold did last night. Who's the quarterback? I think it was for Oklahoma State, where it's just you see him like pre-snap and his hands are shaking. And he just doesn't know that was Sam Darnold last night. Bring back the ghost. Sam Darnold shit the bed.
You're either a dude or you're not.
Leg into his sock, and he didn't do anything about it. Didn't even want to change. Didn't try to do anything different. Just stayed in the shitty bed that he made. And he has Justin Jefferson. He has Jordan Addison. He has T.J. Hawkinson. But yet it was like he was looking for Jalen Naylor and Aaron Jones every time pretty much if he actually needed completion. So thank you, Sam Darnold, for exposing the true quarterback that you are, that we all knew the whole time. Some people wanted you re-signed, and it was idiotic. But, again, this is Geno Smith, Case Keenum, you name it. 2.0.
Hey, and let's give some credit where credit's due, too, boys. Jeffrey. Hey, boys. The defensive line, huh?
It did not.
The defensive line. I was watching the Pat McAfee show, and he has that little stat guy at ESPN that sends him stats. They rushed, and this is AG too, being like, hey, we're gonna help the defensive line out. They rushed the quarterback with 6 or more guys, fellas, 13 times yesterday. Most in the NFL this season by any team. And AG just said, hey, we're going to help this defensive line out. We obviously don't have Hutch. This is what we've been waiting for. It's like, hey, Hutch went down weeks ago. You lost Aleem McNeil 2 or 3 weeks ago. We need something. And it was like yesterday, AG finally was like, oh, boys, hey, we lost a couple dudes. Maybe we need some help. And they sent 6 guys 13 plus times yesterday, the most in the NFL all season long. And that defensive line, having the help, having more guys get under pressure to Sam Darnold, that was unbelievable. I think they did a hell of a job, to be honest. I think they did a great job. Like El-Quadin Muhammad got there, Zadarius Smith.
See what
100%.
Because he has 3 sacks. We talked about, what did we say we wanted James Houston to finish the season with? 3 to 5 sacks.
To start the year, we were like 6.
Yeah, but when we actually saw, like, not regular season, but preseason, we saw him
Al is that role.
He has 3 sacks, all of them against NFC North teams, and he creates pressure. So he's a guy that's a quiet role player. Like, come to playoffs, El-Quadin Muhammad's going to have a sack, and that's something where he was, in Indy? And he had 6 sacks, and then after that, his career was pretty much over. Another guy
revitalized, man.
Yeah. Come on now, Boone.
Jeff, I want to throw this out there because Josh Pascal had a great game. Levi O had a great game. I think it's just a sense of, hey, when you send 3 guys, these guys obviously aren't like the Hutch and playmakers. So you can't send like just 3 guys and expect them to win, double teams and one-on-one. But when they were sending 5 or 6 dudes, like Levi O, he had I think 9 pressures or something last night. And then like Josh Pascal, Jeff, he didn't have a sack or a bunch of stats, but the man was getting pressures.
He had some quarterback hits. And again, I think that game plan last night was specifically tailored because of Sam Darnold. They knew, like, if we can send 6, this dude ain't going to, like, you saw the difference. They blitzed Jared Goff. Look at Jared Goff's numbers against the blitz. Like, that dude's lights out. And then you have Sam Darnold, who's actually like lights out, can't see against the blitz. Like, that dude cannot do anything. So there's like it's like funny seeing the opposites. It's like Jared, a quarterback who's very good against the blitz, and Brian Flores is like, I don't know what to do. We're blitzing them. They're picking us apart. Obviously, the O-line was protecting them well. But then you look at the flip side, and then the Lions, when they would blitz everyone and send 6, it's like Sam Darnold's just rattled. I wonder how that would change given who they're playing. But it's great.
Same thing.
Being aggressive. Because if you're blitzing like Josh Allen, for example, like that, or Patrick Mahomes, he might be better against the blitz, than like a Sam Darnold. So
I do think the scheme has to be a little different.
But it was a great that was a great game plan though for that game. Yeah. Like AG was dialed. Like Kevin O'Connell's a very good offensive mind. That dude had no answers, like 0 answers.
Yeah, I was thinking actually last night because I said I don't want to play the Vikings the 3rd time. Would love to. Like I would love to play them again because you literally could probably do the same exact thing. Just throw 5-6 guys at a time at him, and it's like he just the skill wise and I just don't think he's good enough to be able to do like Stafford instantly. We saw it actually week 1. Yeah. We saw week 1. We were throwing blitzes. Hutch was getting there. You remember how many pressures Hutch had versus
11,
Stafford?
12, something like that.
Yeah, and he just kept getting there. But Stafford just boom. It was out within half a second. It was impossible. Like no pass rusher in the NFL would have gotten to Stafford. And that's like if you end up having to face the Rams, like you get into a little bit of trouble there. Maybe you get, and if you let him sit there, if you let him just sit there, he's going to cut you up. I'm with you, Klotz. Like, yeah,
I know.
all right. Stafford's always going to be scarier to play than Sam Darnold.
Carry on to what you were saying. What quarterback in the NFC, at least to get to the playoffs, do you think that they shouldn't do that to? Because I think Stafford's the only one. Like, if you make Jalen Hurts uncomfortable in Ford Field and big atmosphere, he's gonna turn the ball over. Credit to Sam Darnold for not turning the ball over at least. But when you go 0 for 3 in the red zone with no touchdowns, give me an interception over that all day of the week.
Throw one out there.
Go ahead, Boone.
Baker Mayfield. He did it week 2 versus us. Gets the
But
ball
sending
out.
the house like that.
I felt like they got pressure on him on week 2, and he was getting it was like a back-to-back week thing with Stafford, and then week 2, I remember I think we were at the Red Ox doing the show, and I remember he just kept getting the rock out, and we were like, oh my gosh, like you can't, like he was just every throw he was making it.
No Chris Godwin now though.
That's true, but they do have like McMillan's been good, like they've had guys that stepped up. I just think Baker's maybe another one who gets the ball out quick, who has a good arm. I don't even think it's mobility, really. Like I do think mobility is a problem, but I do think like that scheme there, like getting after the quarterback, it's a guy who can, like Jared Goff, he can see the field quick, boom, get the ball out and make a play, and he'll hurt you from it. That's why I think
it's not all about mobility, even though that helps. But you're right. Like Jared's not the most mobile guy, but he's great against the blitz.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends.
One of the best in the league.
So I mean, I would say in the NFC, like if you're facing Jalen Hurts, probably something that would make sense. I mean, obviously their offensive line's way better than the Vikings. So, but that's what you have to do to get to Jalen. I mean, if you don't send 6th, I mean, you're probably just getting stuffed anyway. Like they got, I mean, Lane Johnson. So you gotta overwhelm him. So I think it would probably make sense to blitz him as well. Stafford probably. I mean, I think it really. I'm looking at the NFC, and we'll talk more about it later. But in terms of matchups, we'll save it because I want to talk more about like who really threats to the Detroit Lions, and we'll talk more about that, other teams in the NFC and the AFC as well. But the offense, I do want to talk about a little Jahmyr Gibbs here because Jahmyr Gibbs broke the franchise record for total touchdowns. I mean,
it's insane.
Jamal Williams still has the old rushing TD record, which won't be his for long. But total TDs, Jahmyr shattered it, had 4 TDs yesterday. And he's just a guy. It's like, even when he's not running the ball well, he's always a threat to pop one for 25, 45 yards. And he did it multiple times in the game last night. The Vikings, we showed the stat last night that Al Karsten put out. Brian Flores and this Vikings defense, the biggest yards they've allowed in the run game, all the biggest runs, all Jahmyr Gibbs. No other running back's doing what Jahmyr's doing against his Vikings defense. And honestly, what Jahmyr's done really this year, I mean, what does he have? 1,800 yards all purpose. He's got 20 TDs. I mean,
all pro?
Running backs is only 2, right?
No, there's 4. He'll be all pro. There's I think at least when I looked it up, because I tweeted it out today, I haven't heard anyone say Jahmyr Gibbs all pro. Like obviously you think he's top in the league, but I looked it up and like, I mean, I can look it up again just to be sure, but I'm pretty sure like in the 2023,
sure if it was 2, like first team, second team, or they have 2 each on first
the
team.
2023 all pro team, you had first team, you had Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, and second team, you had maybe it is 2.
That's what, if it is 2, that's what's tough because you got to go Saquon and Derrick Henry.
Because when I looked it up here, and maybe I can share my screen so you guys can see it here. Because on Pro Football Reference, it says 2023 All Pros had Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, and then it had 4 running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Raheem Mostert, and Derrick Henry.
Last year, you saying?
Yeah, I mean, let me share. I can share my screen, and maybe I'm going crazy, boys. But I could be going crazy. I tweeted it out today, so hopefully I'm not going too crazy.
Yeah, show me on your screen.
So you guys see here? These are their all pro teams. All pros 2023. 2023 NFL all pros. Am I crazy? Am I going crazy here, boys?
It's probably like I thought it was 4 too. Like I think they have like 2 for first team and 2 for second team, but I could be wrong. Now you're making me tweak out. Let's look at 2022 real quick. I'll pull up 2022 offense. Running back Josh Jacobs. Offense, Nick Chubb. Yeah, like 2022, they're showing 2 as well. So I'm not sure. We'll have to see.
It's weird. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, obviously Saquon and Derrick Henry probably get it, but like you
right
can still
there.
make a case like he's the third guy. He's the third guy.
Okay. He said that's players who have had all pros through 2023. Boone.
No, I don't think so.
He said it's 2 and second team. Yeah, I
Maybe
could
second team all pro. I don't know. Is there a second team all pro?
I could be wrong. I thought, because I saw someone tweet out their all pro team if he were to make one, and it was 2 running backs, one for first team, one for second team. He didn't put 4 in there. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, that would be tough. That would be nice if you got it. They just say, hey, let's throw a third one in this year because Jahmyr Gibbs deserves it.
Put him at the flex spot.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's hard to say. Like Saquon's had all him and Derrick have been insane.
Back in the NFL.
But it's just like it's so hard. That's when Caleb asked yesterday, like, is he the best in the league? Like, is it time we say like it's hard to do that because dude, that position, there are just some dudes. Like there's 3 or 4 just absolute dudes. Like Christian McCaffrey at his best. It's like who passes him? And Derrick Henry at his best. And Klotz, you said it perfect. They all do different things too. So it's like everyone does different things, but like the playmaking ability of Jahmyr Gibbs, seeing what he did yesterday, like honestly, the last 2 or 3 weeks without D-Mont, imagine him doing that for a whole season. He literally almost had as many yards
probably.
Oh, dude, he's breaking records, and he has 20. He'll have 25 touchdowns. He'll have 2,000 rushing. He'll have this. He'll have that, and it just he doesn't have that opportunity because he has D-Mont. But like he has that skill set. He's a top 3 back in the NFL right now, currently, and I don't think it's a question.
I'm trying to think of where he would rank is just his offensive weapons. Period. He's probably a top 5 to 6 just offensive weapon. Like you have the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson's. Wide receiver wise, like I would rather have Jahmyr Gibbs on my team than like CeeDee Lamb. Saquon I'll put over him. At this point though, where Tyreek is, like I think Tyreek's still good, but I don't think he's going to be Tyreek like next year. And I'd say as a wide receiver compared to running back, Jahmyr Gibbs had the better season. Like he's one of the best just offensive players, period, in the NFL. I wouldn't say running back. I know you boys agree, but even when you stack him up against some of the wide receivers, I'd rather have him coming out of the backfield instead of one of those guys on the outside.
Yep.
Yeah, Jahmyr's been incredible. What they've been putting on his plate, and he's been handling it really well. I mean, he got destroyed by Andrew Van Ginkel, and he got right up. And after that, ran for like 25 yards. I mean, that dude. He showed some grit. And he's showing more in the passing game too, which we talked about. But he's a weapon. I mean, he's really this year starting to be what we thought he would coming out of the draft. He really is.
Can I pose you boys a question? And I don't think there's a wrong answer. I'm just interested to your guys' answer here. Who's more pivotal for the Detroit Lions offense in a Super Bowl run this year? Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jahmyr
I hate
Gibbs?
this. I knew exactly what you were going to do.
If you had to say, I want that guy heading into playoffs. No wrong answer.
Well, I think
Jahmyr.
Jeff, you can go first. I have my
I'm taking
answer,
Jahmyr.
So.
I'm taking Jahmyr, but I'm not going to be mad if you guys know why.
I'm gonna write my answer down so I don't.
So I think I'm going to go football reasoning. I think Gibbs, because if you're running the ball well, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's just going to eat anyway. So I'll go Jahmyr based on, if you can't run the ball and you're in the Super Bowl, it's going to be tough. You're one-dimensional. So I'm going to go Gibbs first. This offense starts in the run game. So, you got to get the run game going. So I would go Jahmyr Gibbs. And then by that, Amon-Ra is going to eat anyway.
Yeah.
So that's my reasoning.
I wrote down Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs. See? Jahmyr Gibbs. I wrote him down. I'm with like you, like the explosiveness, like seeing the dude. He's getting almost 200 all-purpose yards. With D-Mont out, he's getting over 200 all-purpose yards. It is one of those things to where you could make the argument if D-Mont's back fully healthy. Like I think D-Mont comes back, but is he going to be fully healthy? Probably not. Like he had a tough knee injury. Like he's going to be really good, and you're probably going to get a D-Mont that's 80%. But if D-Mont I'll say this: if D-Mont was 100%. And I would probably go Amon-Ra. I would rather have Amon-Ra just because of what D-Mont can do in his explosiveness. He's not Jahmyr Gibbs, but you're giving your offense, like in the running back room, you're getting almost to that ceiling. Like you're right there with your, but if you lose, honestly, if you lose either one, I would say it's pretty tough moving forward. I would say that. I think there's 3 guys on this team right now, or 4 on the offense, that if they go down, you're in a tough spot. I would say 1 is Jared Goff, 2 probably Jahmyr Gibbs, Penei Sewell, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. If one of those guys goes down, you're going to be like, okay, this is going to be a battle going forward. Like, you're going to be in a spot where you have to lock in.
I'll tell you what, even if they have 60% of Monty, I hope to God they put him out there on 4th and inches and they run the ball. They don't try to do play action down the field to Jameson. The 4th and inches, that's why you have David Montgomery. So hopefully in the playoffs, I know it was a great game overall for the Detroit Lions in totality. There's a couple things that definitely rubbed me the wrong way. That 4th and inches, when you could just QB sneak, get Jared Goff, but you play action, made me want to just erupt. But with David Montgomery coming back in the playoffs, hopefully there's no more of that.
Yeah. I mean, even the shot to J-Mo downfield. I mean, speaking of J-Mo hit 1,000 yards. He had 1,000. Now you got a 2,000-yard receivers. Now they're officially they're in that top, wide receiver duo. Not too many guys in the league get 2,000-yard receivers, let alone 1,000. So
are they number 1?
Congrats to J-Mo. What'd you say?
Would you put them over? I mean, that's just Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
That's
T
still
didn't
1.
get 1,000 this year.
I think,
but he damn near did in like 12 games or something like that.
Yeah, he missed to like 5 games.
Hey, J-Mo missed 2.
I love J-Mo, but if you're going to ask me between T. Higgins or J-Mo who you're taking, I'm taking T. Higgins. If you're asking me between Jahmyr Chase or Amon-Ra, I'm taking Jahmyr Chase.
I think they're as a duo top 3 to 5. They're in that.
Did we have this conversation before? And I think we had them at literally 2 or 3. I think I did. I think I had Jahmyr Chase and T. Higgins, and then I think I had after that, because I think someone else went AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and I went
Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle.
I would still go
Puka.
J-Mo, Amon-Ra over those guys. Yeah. Personally, I would. I think they're over AJ Brown. Like, I would take Amon-Ra over AJ Brown. I've made that very clear over the last year. And I think right now I'm taking J-Mo over Devontae Smith as well. I don't think that's a question either, in my opinion. And the same thing, like Cooper Kupp and Puka. That's a good duo, but I'm still, for me, like with Cooper getting a little older, like I think Amon-Ra is right there with Puka. I think it's him and Puka. They're both very elite. And then I'm taking J-Mo now moving forward. I just say Cooper Kupp's getting old. And I don't think it's not his fault.
I don't hate it. It's
He's
just
good.
Those 2 are so fucking good.
And he has games where he puts up games where it's like vintage Cooper Kupp, but it's like not consistent anymore, which is like, I had him on my fantasy team last year. It was like one of the most disappointing, like realizing a player, an all-time player of your time is like getting older. It's like, man, this sucks.
Not Coop.
Yeah, dude. Coop, he was so fun to watch growing up, but like the last few years.
He's pretty washed at this point, unfortunately.
All right,
He is, dude. Those knee injuries killed him, dude. That got him bad.
He still had a solid year. He hit 1,000, didn't he?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Are you looking it up?
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of guys that I don't think hit 1,000 that was shocking this year.
Tyreek didn't. Like we just brought up T. Higgins.
He had 700 yards.
Yeah.
Shout out Mike Evans too for getting it. I'm a big Mike Evans fan.
I mean, Cooper Kupp is what he had a year like he always kind of has.
Besides, he hit 1,000.
No, it's 700. That's kind of what he's been his whole career. Missed 5 games. That's what he's been. Yeah. He's just
only played 11 too.
But
dude, Jeff, this isn't at you. DJ Moore didn't even hit 1,000 this year. That's a player who should hit every year. He should hit that every year.
Yeah, hopefully they get an offensive coach, help him get that 1,000. That's what you hope.
And a quarterback.
Bringing
Cam Ward for DJ Moore.
Oh no,
situation will be better.
Yeah, Cam Ward will be out of the league in 3 years.
That doesn't even make sense.
No, yeah.
I'm interested in this quarterback class.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. This might be the most question mark quarterback class, just because anything can happen.
I am not interested in this quarterback. Like, I love Cam Ward as a college player, and I think he can translate a little bit. But if he's going first overall, like, no.
I'm just interested to see who has a good career. Like, is Shador, like, the Shador hype is big because of obviously his dad, so that's going to be big. I feel like he's going to have a lot to live up to. And I think he's going to be a solid quarterback in the NFL, but I feel like people are expecting him to be like a superstar.
Yeah.
And it's like not a lot of people can do that.
I feel like he's like almost like a Bo Nix without the experience. Like he doesn't have a huge arm. He's not overly big. He's mobile, but not like he's not looking to run the ball. Like he doesn't do anything elite, but he does everything pretty good. And I feel
Cam Ward's going to be good in the league. I think he's going to be really good.
I just think, bro, if you throw that man in like New Orleans or like Tennessee or just like the Jets or something like that, like there's just some like in Chicago if they had a quarter, like there's just some places quarterbacks can't be.
I saw a mock draft him going to the Browns, and I felt for him, dude. I was like, please don't let anyone drop Cam Ward in Cleveland. One. Do not let that happen. And you know what's crazy is like Jalen Milroe is going to be a pick too this year. Like that's like
probably
the
first round.
I think he's the third quarterback, and I just don't know Jalen Milroe. I've never been big on him. He just doesn't. They haven't won in Bama. I want guys who can win. Cam Ward, he was just in a weird spot in Miami too. So I give you that one credit. Cam Ward's going to be good though. Yeah, put him in Tennessee. You guys know me in Tennessee. Put him in Tennessee.
They got tackles at least there. They got a little bit of an O-line.
Get him.
Speaking of the quarterback class, I know you mentioned Sam Darnold, but all these Vikings fans saying start JJ, please.
Next week?
No, next year.
Like,
next year.
I thought, like, what the fuck?
JJ McCarthy will be better than Sam Darnold.
Do you next year he will?
I don't know next year. I don't know about next year, but like in Minnesota at some point, I think with Kevin O'Connell, I'm you know what? I fully go in with the Klotz thing with Kevin O'Connell. I think if JJ's been there a year, obviously he hasn't been able to practice or anything, but one of the biggest things coming out of the draft was he wasn't able to really be in an offense that throws the ball a lot in Michigan, and he's been able to sit there and learn all year long, like scheme, everything offensively from Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. That's where I think it's like he sits there and all right, can we – yeah, I'm going to wait because I have something on Sam Darnold. I'm going to wait because I have a lot on Sam Darnold here. Not a lot, but –
well, you want to?
Well, I'll just do studs and duds. My dud, Sam Darnold, absolute dud. And I'm with Klotzy. I'm with all the Minnesota Vikings fans. No need, like this is my mindset when it comes to the NFL and quarterbacks. And maybe I'm wrong. But when you get a guy, you know you got a guy. And it's like big games. Like Jared Goff. We've seen Jared Goff a couple of years. They were losing, but was he playing like terrible in big games when he had the opportunity? Like no, he wasn't. Like he wasn't. And when like moments came, he stepped up. We saw it in that Packers game on the road. He stepped up. They play well, and they find a way to win. And I think that's like that around the NFL. Like Michael Penix. Shout out Michael Penix. Michael Penix has been playing well in big games, and it's like Sam Darnold. I know it's like the biggest regular season game almost in NFL history. He was thrown into a tough situation, and I think he's a good quarterback. Like I think he can still win. It's just like, hey, do you want to win those big games or not? And that yesterday was like, hey, a quarterback that's ready for the moment doesn't lose by 20, 30 points and finds a way to make some of those throws. And he missed every throw. And it's just like for a franchise guy, if you're going to pay him a lot of money, you expect at least half of those throws to be made. Didn't make one of them. I wrote a quote down here. Typically, the boys say, hey, pressure makes diamonds, right? The pressure was on yesterday. That man made pebbles. He didn't know what to do. He was shook. He was absolutely shook. He overthrew every ball. He couldn't get the ball. Sometimes he was trying to get it there. He threw it 10 yards short. He's just, to me, it's like if I'm a Vikings fan, yes, he can win you 14 games in the season. Yes, he can win you 12 games and compete for a division. But when it comes to these big games on the road, in the playoffs, a Super Bowl that you want, like that's always, to me, like when we're building the Lions the last 3 years, my mindset, can Jared Goff do this? I always believed he could. If I ever had a doubt creep in my mind, seeing that Jared Goff couldn't play in those big games, I would have said, no, let's move on. But like he can. Sam Darnold can't. Like that. I know that was the first one, but it's just, to me, if I'm building the team and I'm a GM, I want a quarterback where, hey, when I see you playing those big games, I don't care if you win or lose, but I want to make sure you're performing. And what was he? 18 for 48, 18 for 42.
41.
It was terrible. Like that was like, all he had to do was play a solid game. He probably gets a contract extension. Now you have to actually look at it and say, okay. And that's where I say, like, guys, like Jeff, you guys are joking around with JJ. Like, JJ at Michigan played in big games. Whether he had to make big throws or not, he made big throws in times that he needed to. And, like, to me, it's like, I don't care what you do the rest of the games. But when the big games come, as long as you're making the throws, if our defense gives up 1 million and you lose, okay, but just make make the plays that you need to make. And that's where I think, like in Minnesota, it's like, hey, just move on to JJ next year and say, let's roll with that, because you know he can make the throws. You just got to get him the experience at that point. So that's just me. That was me, but that was brutal by Sam Darnold yesterday. That was my dud. I know we were into studs and duds. Sam Darnold had to be the dud. That was brutal. That was bad.
Yeah, I mean, JJ, I think for him, I prefer quarterbacks to sit, so I think it's good for him. I just don't think, and we all agree, I don't think JJ is going to have Sam Darnold production next year. So it's gonna take some time for him to get acclimated, and then maybe in the next couple of years he'll be very good. But the Vikings are in that weird period right now where it's like, okay, you go 14-3. I know you lose a big game, but you're going to start JJ McCarthy next year, and now you're like, all right, we got to you might need to take a step back to take 2 steps forward.
Yeah, then that's what's needed, because intangibly, there's nothing that JJ McCarthy can't do that Sam Darnold can. Like, they're both big quarterbacks. JJ McCarthy, without a doubt, is more mobile. Like, I think that's probably the most attractive thing to Minnesota right now about JJ McCarthy, because he has a rocket of an arm. Like, nobody's going to deny that. But he can move. Like, he's very sneaky athletic. I know that's the typical thing to say about a white quarterback, but JJ, he's got some wheels on him. The only thing that, I think Minnesota, they won 14 games this year. Next year, I think they fall back to a 10-win team, possibly 11-win team, because I do think they improved the defensive side of the ball. Nobody on that offense, I think, is going anywhere soon as far as true playmakers like Addison and Jefferson. The thing that's going to hurt them, and where Sam Darnold does have experience, is just with the anticipation throws, where it's just being in the NFL. I think that's one thing that JJ is going to struggle with. You saw Brock Purdy, where he struggled later down the season. That's what I think JJ McCarthy looked like rookie year. He's going to make some plays. I'm not saying that. He's got a great supporting cast, but I do think you're going to see some turnovers just because he wasn't making NFL throws that often in college, and now you're going to ask him to do it in probably what will be the best division in football. He's going to struggle a little bit early on, but with Kevin O'Connell, if you're Minnesota's GM and you look what Nick Mullins did to close the season last year, and you flash forward a full calendar year and you look at what Sam Darnold gave you, you're really going to re-sign that? No chance. No chance. I understand it's one game, but to your guys' point, JJ McCarthy, been in a national championship, won a national championship game. Sam Darnold is going 500 at USC, not even winning a Pac-12 championship, goes to New York, learns how to lose, goes to the Panthers, has a couple good games, still losing them. And then you go last year, you're sitting behind a team that's in the Super Bowl. So you have sat and seen as much football as you possibly can to develop. And you had a great regular season. You were putting up great numbers. But that's why you take Sam Darnold in the 4th round. He doesn't work out, because in big moments, he shrinks. And I don't think JJ is going to do that as much through the course of his career.
And I think JJ's ceiling is that much higher. First of all, the throws he's going to be able to make, the mobility, all of that. And Klotz, like you said, the anticipation throws. Sam Darnold, like you saw yesterday, he wasn't put the throws where it's you have to put the ball in a certain spot for your guy to go get it. And he wasn't even doing that for his guys. And he might have done it all year, but when the pressure's on, are you doing that? No. And Schiff guy just put Nick Mullins' name in the chat there. Nick Mullins was able to go out there and win a couple games for the Vikings and shred a defense for the Vikings. So for me, it's okay, JJ next year won't be a rookie, but on the field, yes, he will be. But I think a year under Kevin O'Connell, learning with Sam Darnold, learning everything, the throws are going to eventually come. And I still think they win next year. And I think they win 10, 11, 12 games next year, and they're competing for the North, just like they were this year. And I just think it's it's going to take a little time, couple little time for JJ to get going. But if I'm them, again, dude, I'm rolling with JJ McCarthy. That's just me. I think he may have a higher ceiling, and I know Lions fans don't want to hear it. They're like, Booner, you're Michigan slappy. I think he can be a good quarterback in the NFL in that system. We've seen quarterback. We saw what Kirk Cousins did with Kevin O'Connell, and I think if you have Kevin O'Connell and you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and T.J. Hockenson and Aaron Jones, add a little bit to your offensive line. Why JJ can go out there and make plays, and we saw in the preseason, he made some elite throws, and people were like, whoa. Oh, but then he also made some tough ones. Yeah, he also made some tough ones. So,
Boom, what did I say? And you were mad at me for this comp, but I'm telling you, especially with Kevin O'Connell, will be better. He'll be Alex Smith. He'll win you. He can win you a division. He can win you some playoff games, and he's surrounded with some good players. I mean, him and Tyreek were going crazy for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to go studs and duds here, I'll give my dud. And I'll go on the Lions offense here. And it's
I hate this. You could do it though. I feel for my guy, dude. That's all.
Is it? I wonder. Is Graham Glasgow?
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Don't hate it then.
Did not have a good game at all. So Graham, but again, he's injured. Clearly, he's banged up. He's been dealing with injuries. I think after the bye week, he'll be way better. But Graham did not have a good game whatsoever. He was one of the lowest graded PFF players, but just watching the game, you're like, oof, he's struggling a little bit there. So I'll go Graham as kind of my dud on offense.
I think I'm going to take the one that Booner was talking about. And honestly, Boone, you can be upset with me all you want, but I think it's deserved because it's been a couple weeks in a row. I'm not writing.
Yeah, I don't know about
he's
that.
A bad player. I think last week he struggled, and he's been having some struggle starts through the season. Obviously, he's a little bit older, but Taylor Decker, okay, there was a couple plays where he had a penalty, but there was a couple plays where Jonathan Greenard absolutely worked him. And Jonathan Greenard is a very good player, but I think, and he's going to pick it back up. I think the bye is one of the players that Taylor Decker, at least the bye is going to help him more than anybody on this roster. Like he needs a week to recover. Boone, I agree with you there. I don't think he's trash, but when you look at Taylor Decker, he's definitely been giving up a lot more pressures in the first half. I think it really starts with him. I think they've been attacking Taylor Decker, to be honest with you. Why put pressure on Panay Sewell's side and Kevin Zeitler? Both those guys playing at all-pro level when you can attack Graham Glasgow and Taylor Decker. So Taylor Decker, he'll pick it back up, but definitely last 2 weeks have not been Taylor Decker's finest. But come playoff time, he's going to want to chase a ring. He's going to want to win a ring before he goes out. I know he just got re-signed, but I think he's going to bounce back. Just this week, Boone, he was a dud.
I'll say this. The only reason I don't like it, he didn't have a good game. And Klotz, I don't think he's had like a stretch of bad football right now. I think there's been, I just think there's been like games here and there throughout the year. The only reason, and I would have rather go Graham on this. I just think it with Taylor. He is all season long. Like you see sometimes these offensive linemen, like every year, like last year, Frank went through it with the toe, and this year he just hasn't really had hasn't had an issue really. But like, who was it last year that was going through it? Was it Jonah Jackson last year who was just going through it? Brutal. Or that was the year before. I just think Taylor this year is just going through injury stuff. Like I think it's just one of those years for him. I don't know if it's because he's old or what it is. It just feels like that's the year where he's just like kind of going through some injuries, and he needs the off season. And I don't think like next year he has a healthy year. But I think this is a year where, like we see every year, one of the offensive linemen on this Lions team, they just have a tough year all year because they just keep getting hit with injuries, and they can never recover. And I think that's where Taylor Decker's at right now. It's like, dude, he's been hurt since week 2, and they had the bye week 5, and then it's like he's been hurt in and out since. And it's like every time he comes in, he's like not fully healthy. He's not ready to go. He has something else going on. And I think that's just what it's been with Taylor Decker. That's why it's hard for me to like be like, yeah, he's played bad, but it's hard for me to throw him in a dud just because I know like what the man's going through. He's and I know like, hey, if you're healthy, you should play 100%. But dude, they've been 3 months without a bye week. That's crazy to me. And he's been going through injuries. So it's tough.
Yeah. Now for studs, you can go first, Boone. Tell me who do you guys
have? Or actually, if I say that, then we all just ruin it.
We're strictly going offense on this one.
Either one. No.
Well, I mean, I'll go. I have defense.
A couple go ahead, Boone.
I have defense. I think we all should have the same one defensively. I mean, we could all go back and forth, pick different ones. The man, the problem. Amik Robertson.
Come on, bro.
Amik Robertson held Justin Jefferson. I have it here: 3 catches, 54 yards. That's all he had yesterday. I don't even know if the long one was on him either. But Justin Jefferson yesterday, 3 catches and 54 yards. Amik Robertson dominated yesterday, and him stepping up, boys. And I think it's the confidence for this defense to see a guy like him step up and say, hey, when a challenge is thrown at a guy, to take it and like take that thing by the you-know-what and just roll with it, boys. And then I think Amik like epitomized. Is that the word, epitomized?
Yeah, epitomized
what grit and what Dan Campbell and this defense and this team's all about. That was one of the best performances, I think, honestly. And you know what? This is where we hate Klotz. We can hold hands. Kumbaya. PFF had that man graded in like the 60s, like 61. And he played a hell of a game. Such a good football game.
Only when it fits the narrative. Remember that.
Oh, yeah. He played such a good football game yesterday. So I like Amik Robertson. That's my stud. You know what? I had another one. I know you guys will probably take it. I just want my one stud. I just want Amik Robertson to get all the credit in the world for what he did yesterday. That man, hey, he deserves that. Now it's playoff times. Imagine that confidence that man just built up from last night's game going into the playoffs. Puka Nacua, who? Justin Jefferson
don't
again?
you say that.
Who?
Don't you disrespect
A.J.
Puka.
Brown, who? Terry McLaurin, who?
I'll give
who
you
am
Terry.
Mike Evans, who? Amik Robertson.
Hey, I'll say my stud. I'm gonna go with the big fellas up front. I'm gonna give some credit to Darius Smith. I'm gonna go him. Almost had a pick, had a sack, tackle for loss, making some plays. It's tough, at this point in his career. I always say this. He's not gonna put up the production of Hutch or anyone that he's not gonna be a DN1. But damn, he's a very good DN2. And yesterday he played like a DN1. He played well. And with the help, of course, of blitzing 6, but Zadarius getting double teamed, he pushed through it. And man, if you would have got that pick, that'd have been a hell of a game. That'd have been like an Aiden Hutchinson type of game. Sack, pick, tackle for loss. I'm going to go Zadarius Smith as mine. And they're going to need this type of performance heading forward for Zadarius Smith. So credit to him.
There's two obvious ones that are still out there, Alex Anzalone, Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm not picking either of them. I'm going with the man on the outside who reached 1,000 yards last night, Jameson Williams. And I understand that he didn't have that big of a game, but when you look at what he's overcome this year to reach 1,000 yards, obviously you have the injuries when he's drafted, the suspension, the amount of noise that dude has had to hear about and saying he's never going to be a guy that reaches 1,000 yards. His cap's going to be 800 because he's in the Detroit Lions offense. There's no way to feed him. He's not going to be a hands guy. He's not going to be somebody that can consistently make tough catches. He never keeps his feet. Jameson Williams was able to develop in front of our eyes into a superstar wide receiver and a guy that we could put in a discussion with guys like T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, the other true number 2 wide receivers that could be number 1s in the NFL. So Jameson Williams, I know he only had 30 some yards, but what that 30 yards did for Jameson Williams and the rest of his career going forward, that man secured himself as a guy that you need to watch out for the NFL. And when you see him get rolling, you see Sam Laporte over the second half of the season get rolling. So in 15 games, he was the only receiver besides Deshaun Jackson and Mike Williams to have 1,000 yards and under 60 catches, and he had 7 touchdowns go with it. So Jameson Williams, not just for this game, but for the season, absolute stud. So J-Mo, hats off to you.
Yeah, I mean, J-Mo getting 1,000, man, I love that for him. I do.
Yeah.
And Jahmyr, obviously, is another stud. You got Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell. I mean, you could go with really any defensive player yesterday, and probably, it would be okay to mark him as a stud. But you know what? From a coaching perspective, Aaron Glenn's a stud, and Dan Campbell's a stud. So, you know what? There's a lot of studs yesterday.
I was going to say,
there's a lot of studs.
We did studs and duds one time, and I pulled out a coach, and the chat said, Booner, you cheated. You can't do that. So I did wrote down if I could do a coach AG. And I think that's obvious.
Good. I like how you didn't do it this time. You went with a player.
I wrote literally at the top of my studs list. It just says, if I can, AG. That's all I wrote.
Oh, that's funny. No, I mean, there's a lot of studs from yesterday, so I think it's good.
Can we just stud Dan, like you said, Dan Campbell, or just everything?
Coach of the year.
Yeah. We had that conversation yesterday. I just think it's incredible what he's done with this team. Just seeing the start that he's had, it was one of those situations, boys, where he came in and had the worst situation in football probably in Detroit. The worst situation. Like, quarterback you come in, you get the head coaching job, bring in Brad Holmes. They bring in Brad Holmes. Instantly, your franchise quarterback asks for a trade, have to move on, have to go, okay, let's go Jared Goff here. And that's not a hit on Jared Goff, but okay, new quarterback, know what the franchise is about. The players, remember how many players, they came in and they said, I think it was Brad that said it on a show, or someone said, oh no, it was Chris Spielman. I was watching a Chris Spielman thing, and he was just it was like a UFL football team, the players on it. It was we basically had an XFL or UFL team, and kind of going through that and being okay, we have to turn this thing around. And now Dan just led them to back-to-back division championships. You have the 1 seed. You just won 15 games, guys. Have you ever thought the Lions would win 15 games? Dan Campbell literally just did that in Detroit. It's incredible. It's insane. 15 wins. It's like I don't think there's been 10 teams in NFL history that have won 15 games, and you just did it. Mm-hmm. That's insane. So shout out to Dan, dude. And like you said, Jeff, He should win Coach of the Year going into the game. Kevin O'Connell was minus 1,000. I don't think that Vegas was expecting Kevin O'Connell to lose by 30 or 20 or whatever it was and kind of get dominated the way that they did versus Dan Campbell and this team. But if Kevin, I'll say this, if Kevin O'Connell wins Coach of the Year over Dan Campbell,
it means nothing.
Us three, we're getting Caleb, we're getting Gentry. I don't know if people can find it in the chat where NFL headquarters is. We are making signs and we are going outside of NFL headquarters and we will protest. And I'm promising that for our show. We will protest because there is zero chance in this world. And you know what we'll do? All the different voters, we'll find different voters. We'll protest their places too. I think
the voters go.
I think the McAfee show. I think the McAfee show. I think one of those guys has a vote. We'll go protest them. We'll go protest NFL headquarters. We'll make sure it's very well known that Dan Campbell should have been head coach of the year. And if he's not, we're doing that. And you boys heard it here. We're doing it. You guys really don't have a choice now. I just put it in the air for all of us. So
I mean, I said Kevin O'Connell should win it because I figured the performance. I thought it'd be a close game. But yeah, after that performance, man, I don't see how you can. I don't see how you can do it. 345 Park Avenue, B-level, New York.
We're going to New York City, boys. If it happens, first thing we do this offseason, first point of content that we're making this offseason after the Super Bowl, we're on our way to New York and we're protesting the Coach of the Year thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and there's it's only those two guys. I mean, I thought throughout the season we were talking about Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton. At this point, it's between those two. And after last night, I just don't see how. I mean, to me, it's decided. If Dan doesn't win it this year, I don't see how he can win it at all. To be honest, like they're always going to be good now. You know, like the guy deserves it now. Just give him the award.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah, keep it pushing.
KOC can do it if he has another good run like this with JJ.
Didn't he already win one?
Something like that. Yeah, I believe he did the first year was in Minnesota.
13-4.
I could be wrong, but I know he was at least up for it before. But when you look at what just Dan Campbell's done, I mean, he has a quarterback in the top 5 in passing yards. You have a receiver who's top 3 in receptions and top 5 in receiving yards. A running back who leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns and is top 5 in rushing. Offensively, that's what he is. His offense is better than Kevin O'Connell's. He's went 2-0 against Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell has yet to beat Dan Campbell. And when it comes to all the big games and all the big moments, the Detroit Lions have just simply been better than the Minnesota Vikings. I just think they've been the more dominant team. When you want to go with, well, Kevin O'Connell is Sam Darnold, so that's holding him back. Like Jared Goff, I know that he's a better quarterback, but let's not forget that Dan Campbell helped transcend Jared Goff into his best season, what he's having right now. So I think Dan Campbell, he's a clear Coach of the Year winner. If Kevin O'Connell would have put up a good performance and won, I think he should have got it. But the winner of that game, even if Kevin showed up and they put up 25 points, 24 points instead of 9, Dan Campbell still should have won it, in my opinion. But Dan Campbell is clear Coach of the Year, in my opinion. I'm not going to give you guys any pushback on that.
Well, just looking in the NFC, or at least the AFC in general, I'm curious what your guys' kind of tier list is for like threats to the Lions. I said this earlier. When we did I did the stream earlier. I think there's the Lions. They're in a tier of, and I would put these teams. These are my tiers. I would say the Lions. I would put the Bills in that tier. I would put the Chiefs in that tier, and I would put the Eagles in that tier. And then the next tier, I would put the Ravens, like teams like that. The Ravens, you can go. I mean, I guess Minnesota would be in that kind of tier, but like other teams kind of in that next tier under. But those are my teams that I think the Lions are really looking at. I think it's the Eagles, Bills, and Chiefs. Those are the teams that I think are on the same level as the Lions. 2 of them, obviously, in the AFC, 1 in the NFC. I cannot. If they do face off with the Eagles, that game's going to be a great game. But there's only one team in the NFC, boys, I'm really looking at here. I don't think there's any other team. Like, yeah, there's teams that you don't want to sleep on, right? The Rams. But in terms of, like, teams that are actual threats to the Lions, those are the only 3 to me.
I think the mindset with it.
Chiefs, Bills, and Eagles.
I think the mindset with it, too, it's like you don't want one. You don't have to win. You don't have to win 3 games to get to the Super Bowl. Like you only have to play 2 NFC teams, which I think obviously no dub Booner. That's an advantage. But I just think looking at it, like I think there are teams in the NFC that can shock teams. Like I think the Bucks, Baker could throw for 400, 350, and he can, he'll give you a game. Matthew Stafford with the same thing. Jaden Daniels, he's a weapon that can scare you. Like, you could still beat him. Obviously, the Vikings are the Vikings, but I think if you only have to beat one of those teams, like I'm very confident Dan Campbell and those guys will have the right game plan. Like, they're going to be ready to go, and they're not going to lose that first game. I'm with you, Jeff. I think the only way in the NFC the Lions drop a game would be the Eagles. But I think the advantage, like it quickly turns to, like, you're playing in Ford Field and you have the better offense. And I know you have Saquon. I get that. Lions, like, their best thing defensively, even though they've given up like that run versus Cam Akers, your best thing defensively is essentially stopping the run. That's been what you kind of leaned back on in big games. And yes, they have not been great at it, but with Anzo back, that's like a big thing. If you can limit Saquon, which is hard to do this year, I just think if you get into a shootout, I don't see the Eagles. Like, we've seen them in games all year long, win by one possession, and kind of get lucky. Like that Panthers game, right? Lions get the ball. Like Bryce Young got the ball there at the end to go win the game. Xavier Legette drops the ball at the 1 yard line. They lose the game, or the Panthers lose. The Lions are punching that in 10 out of 10 times versus you, and you're not going to do anything about it. So, like, I just don't think the Eagles defensively, as much as people think their defense is good, I think at Ford Field, I think our Lions offense will put 30+ up on them. And I think at that point, if you get into a shootout, I'm taking the Lions. My concern is really for Super Bowl. If you get into the Super Bowl, it's the Chiefs and Bills. Those are the two concerns for me. That's it. I think you can handle the Ravens. Even outside, I think the Ravens is the only other Super Bowl team in the AFC.
Yeah, I would say that.
But I think you can handle the Ravens. I just think Josh Allen, we know what he can do. But we lost by Josh Allen by 6, and that was with no Alex Anzalone, and that defense played their worst of the year. So if you can find a way to get that defense with 2 weeks to prep, I think you would have to have a decent plan. I think you could still beat the Bills, and then the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs is just such a wild card. With Patrick Mahomes, like, it's a wild card there. But I think that's it. Like, I think there's 2 teams in the NFL right now in the playoffs you lose to, and that would be the Bills, Chiefs, and that means you're in the Super Bowl and you have a chance to win a Lombardi. And at that point, success for me.
Yeah, I'm with you, Boone. If there's 2 teams that I think that they're going, like, they'll be like, damn, there's a real shot they could lose, it's Bills and Chiefs. So those are probably like my S tier, like the top 2. And then the next tier, I think Rams and Eagles are on the same tier for me, and I'm going to put the Ravens right along with them. I think just all those teams, I understand the Rams are a little bit younger, but they can play up to anybody in the NFL. If it's a shootout, they can hang out with anybody in the NFL. They can run the ball with Kyron and with Puka back. There's nobody that's played closer with the Detroit Lions than the Rams, and they've always come into Detroit in those big situations. So that's an environment that they're not going to be comfortable in, but something that they've seen before compared to Philadelphia. But Philly's a more talented team, and then the Ravens. I'm not worried about Tampa. I think it's a long shot they'd even match up with them. Green Bay right now, I think it's a shell of what they were, and I do think the Rams beat the Vikings. So, and even if you match up against the Vikings again, the Rams are a much more battle-tested team than the Vikings. I like KOC. Love Justin Jefferson, but a lot of the rest of that team has a ton of inexperience compared to the Rams. So Chiefs, Bills, Rams, Eagles, Ravens, those are my top 5. And then with the Bills and Chiefs being the top 2.
Yeah, those AFC teams are the biggest threat. I'm curious how teams you face, like I'm and this is what I like. Selfishly, I want to see it because as a football fan, I think it'd be like it's the heavyweight fight. I want to see Lions Eagles in the NFC Championship game. Part of me just is like, all right, can the Eagles just lose and you can get like some other team in the NFC?
That'd be so nice, dude.
It'd be awesome. But I also just like, I'm like, I want to see them. I want to see them face the Eagles. I'm curious, like, what kind of game it would. I feel I think it'd be more of like a 27-21 type of game. And at that point, Booner, you might be more dependent on the offense. Who knows? But I want to see that matchup. But I think the 2 biggest ones, I would agree with you guys. Like, I think that I'm a little higher on the Eagles than you guys are in terms of like a threat to the Lions. But if I had to say the 2 biggest, it's Chiefs, Bills. It's the AFC teams, just because the quarterback play. I mean, you're dealing with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Like, those guys are better than Jalen Hurts. Andy Reid, better than Nick Sirianni. Like, he's obviously a better coach. And the Bills is really just Josh Allen. I mean, and they got some guys on the defensive line, obviously, but it's just Josh Allen. But the Chiefs, I would say, are 1 because Andy Reid and Mahomes in a Super Bowl.
They picked it up too.
Yeah, if you get Andy Reid and Mahomes in a Super Bowl, like going for a 3-peat, that's a test. You know, that'd be the biggest thing for me.
The thing with the Eagles to me is obviously they're 14 wins. Like that's all great to me. It's just like you look at the strength of opponents that they've played. Their division was probably as down as it ever would be. And, in like the NFC East, it's so down right now. They played the Steelers, who was probably now they probably shouldn't have made the playoffs. Like they're a playoff team because of what they did early in the season. They played them at the end of the season when the Steelers are playing their worst football. So I wouldn't even consider, like, if I'm looking at, how many playoff teams do they play? I'm not even going to consider the Steelers in that conversation. I would say they played the Ravens, which they beat 24-19. That's a good win. They beat the Rams, so I'll give them that. And then just looking at it, and then they also played Tampa Bay and Green Bay. The Tampa Bay, they lost to Tampa by 2 possessions by 17 points or something like that. And then the Green Bay, they beat them week 1, which was so long ago, like the longest ago they could be. And we know Green Bay, we feel like they're even frauds right now. So they haven't really played an opponent where you're like, oh my gosh, like they've dominated, they've won big games, they've done this. Like, I don't think they've played a contending team yet. Like they haven't played a legit Super Bowl contender team. At least with the Lions, you can say, okay, they lost to the Bills by 6. This is where they're at. This is where they need to get to. And they've worked on it. They figured it out a little bit this last week you saw. So you can kind of put them in that conversation and say, hey, they only lost by 6. They obviously let the game get away from them. With the Eagles, it's just like, dude, like you've played maybe 2 teams, maybe 3 teams that are going to actually make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. Most of those teams might even lose in the first round, most likely. So it's like, to me, it's just, I think they're a certain, like the circumstance they've had is they've had an easy schedule. I said it a couple weeks ago. I would not be shocked if the Eagles, who do they play?
They play the Packers.
Wouldn't be shocked if the Packers go into Philly and just somehow win that game.
Well, the big thing is, will Jalen Hurts
would not be shocked. That is big. I just would not be shocked if they lose that game.
2 weeks and he's still in concussion protocol.
That's crazy. That's not good at all.
That means he's really messed up.
I'd imagine he plays, but even like the whole thing with Philly, when the people are taking Philly over the Lions, this is the defensive side of the ball that Philly has, and they do have a better defense. But when you really break it down, like Jalen Carter, I'll give you, like Jalen Carter, all-pro guy. Who else on that defense is game wrecking? Like the Detroit Lions, when they have somebody that's like on the other side, like you saw Nick Bosa in that first half, like kind of game wrecked. You've seen Rashawn Gary from time to time, game wreck. They don't have a game wrecker. Like they have a good secondary. Darius Slay isn't what he was. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, both rookie corners, have fun guarding J-Mo and Amon-Ra. In the back end, CJ Gardner-Johnson. If you don't think that Ben Johnson and this team knows how to get into CJ Gardner-Johnson's head and exploit him, that's a different story. And then they got Reed Blankenship, like solid safety, but he's not locking down anything. And then you look at the linebackers, you got Zach Bond, and I can't think of who the other linebackers off the top of my head. The Lions have the better linebacking core, so I think it's kind of one of those, not a facade because they are a legit defense, but it reminds me a lot of the Minnesota Vikings defense where it's just they got solid guys out there, but who's stopping Jahmyr Gibbs in the open field? Who's covering Sam Laporta? Who's covering Amon-Ra St. Brown? Who's covering Jamison Williams? I don't think they have enough on the defensive side of the ball, even with Vic Fangio, to keep up with the Lions, especially when Jalen Hurts, if he plays in that wild card round, more risk for injury. If he's rested and he's got to play in that second round, well, now you have a quarterback who hasn't played in 3 weeks, was kind of playing up and down beforehand. There's a lot of things in Philadelphia where, again, you're waiting for that month stretch where it's like playing good football. What the fuck's going on in Philly? That's going to happen in the playoffs, and it could be before they meet, like Booner just alluded to.
I could be so wrong with this too, and maybe this is a mindset that I got to get rid of going into the playoffs. I just think like this Lions offense, and I keep seeing the stats pop up today, like they're one of the best of all time. Like I see all these stats of them getting compared to the greatest show on turf, to the Patriots offense when they were at their best. Like all these offenses that are like the best ever, and they're like sitting there number 1 in the rankings, number 3 in the rankings all time, number 2. To me, it's just like to be able to stop this offense and make it a game. Like if you're the Eagles, yes, they have a good defense and they have a couple dudes, and maybe they're missing a game wrecker guy. But to me, it's like, hey, if you want to beat this team, you need to have another, like to stop this offense and to stay in a game. You need to have a legit like defense that's like, oh, hey, this is a legit defense. And I'll say this, I don't think there's a defense in the NFL this year like that. Like there hasn't been a defense where you're like, oh, like typically you see like some Patriots defense step up. The Ravens for years, they've had defenses where you're like, oh my gosh, like it's tough to score on them. We saw with the Lions the last couple of years. I just don't think there's a defense for as good as this offense is that's like, hey, you can slow them down, or you're going to completely stop them. Like, no, you're not. And Jeff, I know you said like defenses win Super Bowls. I just think this is a year to where there's not like a defense that's like that good, to where it's that a team's going to win because of their defense. Like maybe the Chiefs, they're getting what's his name back, that corner, he's supposed to be coming back. Like they're getting some dudes back. Maybe they turn into that in the Super or in the playoffs, because typically they do playoff time, they turn it around. But like the Eagles defense, like I just don't see them being like, hey, they're going to stop a top 5 offense, not just in the NFL, of all time. And that's where I think things start to turn a little bit, to where, hey, is there another top 5 defense in the NFL of all time playing right now to kind of coincide? Don't think there is. So it's a down year for defenses, in my opinion. And the offense that you're putting out on the field, it's head over heels better than anyone else.
Yeah, in terms of offenses, you look at the NFC, there's no one in the NFC that has the same offense. I mean, even the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, he's essentially the offense. Jalen Hurts as a passer has not been, he's not putting up numbers. But I will say I'm a little more higher on their defense. But that's why it's, if the Eagles had like a Lions-esque offense, then we could have a conversation, but they don't. It's like the matchup Lions offense against their defense, I think will be a very good matchup. I'm not saying they're going to stop the Lions, but I don't think the Lions are going to put up 40 on that defense. Like I don't, but I also don't think the Eagles offense is going to put up
30 on Detroit.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at kind of with the matchup. Like I'd still, if they were playing tomorrow, I'd still pick the Lions. I think it'd be a close game. But yeah, you're right in terms of defenses. I mean, the Bills don't have an elite defense. The Chiefs don't have an elite defense, but
this is a weird year. Typically, I would agree with you.
Even
I'd be like defense
Tampa
wins it, but this year is just it's a little off.
Like Tampa last year was like a wild card team you didn't want to play because they have all those guys defensively. That front seven's usually like elite up there. And even them, like the defensive head coaches around the league, that like it's the only team that's like, defensively you better watch out for a little bit is probably Philly, and like they're not anything crazy.
Well, I mean, we can talk all day.
Johnson.
And he's, by the way, he had 6 picks this year for the
like two versus like the Cowboys.
He's just
versus Cooper Rush.
It's ridiculous. But hey, Aaron Glenn, we talked about him earlier. I will say this about Aaron Glenn. I think he's as good as gone. Okay, I know you think Klotzy, he'll be back. There's a chance he'll be back. I think me and Booner agree on this. I think he's gone. And I think the Saints are the team. It makes too much sense. I know he's interviewing with Chicago. He's going to interview with other teams. I'm sure he'll interview with like the Jags and all these other teams. He's going to go to the Saints. That's where he's going to go. And I think Ben Johnson, I know the Patriots just fired Gerard Mayo, which, I'll feel bad for him. But let's be real. You want an offensive coordinator grooming Drake May. Okay, that makes total sense to fire Gerard Mayo. It just does. I don't know if that's the place for Ben. I don't know. I talked about it earlier too. It's great. You get to go to Drake. You get to go coach the Patriots, a prestige organization. They have a ton of cap space. Drake May. I get all that, but I think Aaron Glenn for sure leaves. Ben, I'm a little more iffy on. I think the Patriots job's interesting, but besides that, little iffy. I can see him returning, but I can see AG leaving, and I can see AG. This is the thing that I talked about, and I'm curious what you guys think. A, of AG actually leaving, but B, whether AG takes Calvin Shepard and whether Ben takes Tanner Engstrand, because I made this point. It doesn't make sense for either guy to leave because you're probably going to get promoted here in Detroit anyway on a Super Bowl contender with way more talent. So for your own resume, if I'm Tanner or I'm Calvin Shepard, why wouldn't I want to stay in Detroit, be the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator, and have all this talent to work with? Why would you want to leave with AG? I know I get it. You love AG, but coach the Saints, like that defense. And by the way, AG is going to be calling plays. So you won't even be able to call plays on defense. Same with Tanner. You're going to follow Ben, but you're not going to be able to call plays with Ben. So I think it makes sense for those two, like side note, to like not leave with those guys. If you want the best opportunity, the best situation, Dan will give you the keys. You can call plays. It just makes too much sense for those guys to stay. But I do think AG leaves. That's
I'll do the first part of that first with the AG. Like I think AG is good as gone. I'm with you, Jeff. Like, and I know Klotz. I hope he stays. I hope that he's like, yep. But I think last year you looked at it, I don't know if he got an offer last year, but he did all those interviews. And then now this year, and especially after last night, you saw today it opened up and AG had 3 or 4 teams instantly. And I think there's a sense too where I personally, and this is where I think it comes down for like Ben Johnson as well. I thought there was going to be more job openings today. I did. I thought there was going to be a couple more coaches fired today. Maybe I was wrong on that, but I thought maybe there was going to be a couple of surprises. I think when you look at it like AG, the New York Jets make sense. The Saints makes sense. I think the Saints is like the one where you're like, yes, he needs to do that. Now today, when I saw an alert come through my phone that Joe Brady was requested to get interviewed by the New Orleans Saints, a guy that's been at LSU, who's been in Louisiana, who has ties to that state. And he's an offensive mind like Ben Johnson. Jeff, that's where my mind turns a little bit to where the one thing that we all have something we can lean back on is for both of these guys to return. You see a guy like Joe Brady gets the Saints job, and a guy like, I don't know, I saw today Rex Ryan potentially in New York, or, someone else gets that New York job, and you're sitting there and AG's like, okay, there's really no other teams that make sense for me. I'm going to have an opportunity next year to go get a job. I think that's what it comes down to. I think if AG is offered the New Orleans Saints job or offered the New York Jets job, I think Aaron Glenn instantly will take it. Like, he'll be like, yep, I'm going to New Orleans. But I think if it's a situation where you say New Orleans say, hey, we want to go offensively and we want to take an offensive mind, a young offensive mind, we're going to go Joe Brady and let Joe Brady run this thing and build this up, and we have now an offensive head coach, then I think, okay, now you look at AG and say, hey, AG's probably going to come back. Just because, hey, he's going to have opportunities next year. You're going to have all those returners. And Klotz, that's where I go to your side to where, hey, if Joe Brady gets a job in New Orleans, I'm with you, Klotz. You go back. You sit there, you have one of the best offense or defenses in the NFL with everyone healthy again, and you go try and win another Super Bowl, and you run it back, and then next year you try and see if there's another job opening. Now, and I'm sorry, I'm a little long-winded here. Ben Johnson, I think it's the same exact thing with him. He's interviewing for Chicago, and he's interviewing for New England. If Chicago decides to go a different route, okay, he goes to New England. Guess who's going to get the New England head coaching job, boys?
Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel. And if Mike Vrabel gets that job and he interviews for there, the only other spot I see Ben Johnson going to, I texted to you guys this morning, is the Jacksonville Jaguars because of the situation. It's a very, very group. They have cap space.
They messed up by keeping Trent. They messed up.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Oh, the GM? Yeah. I texted you guys literally. The news came out. I texted you guys and said, Ben Johnson to Jacksonville, and then within 10 minutes they released a statement and said Trent staying, and I was like, I texted you guys right back. I said, never mind, Ben's not going. Yeah. and I literally just saw, hey, if he can get his own GM, if he can do everything himself, Ben's going to Jacksonville. Because dude, you have a top 5 pick, you have a quarterback who has such a high ceiling, you have some of the best cap space in the NFL. The owner's willing to spend whatever money to anything to bring you in. So he's willing to spend. So I don't know. I just think there is a chance both guys come back. It's just how I thought there was going to be more coaching available, positions available, and there isn't. I'm shocked. And maybe there's some that still open up. Yeah. Vegas, I thought Vegas was going to be open. Antonio Pierce is coming back.
That's insane. But
I thought New York Giants were going to be open. They're coming back. It's just it's shocking to me that teams aren't making moves.
And when you guys say the points that you are you guys are making it makes sense. My thing is just I'm trying to put myself, if I'm Aaron Glenn, if I'm Ben Johnson, if you go, let's say you take New Orleans because that's where he played. That's it makes sense. When you look at the situation that New Orleans is in, least amount of cap space in the NFL. They just had a defensive coach with Dennis Allen. So you're thinking, to your point, Joe Brady, they probably want to switch things up because when they were good, it was early on in the season when Kubiak was cooking and they had a quarterback. Who's going to be the quarterback next year? Because it's not going to be Derek Carr. Are they going to go get a rookie quarterback, one of the weaker quarterback drafts we've seen in a long time? Are they going to bring in a veteran? Defensive coach, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu. They just trade away Marshawn Lattimore. It's a defensive coach where he's going to have to rebuild everything. Same situation is pretty much going on with the Jets. They have more offensive talent. So you can take one of those jobs, go to Chicago, or Let's wait for Aiden Hutchinson to come back. Let's wait for Bradley Cook for another offseason. If Aiden Hutchinson is on this team next year healthy, it's guaranteed floor, top 10 defense. You are guaranteed floor to be back in the NFC Championship game. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, in my opinion, are in very similar boats. Ben has a little bit more to his resume, but I think like last night, it opens up a lot of people around the NFL's eyes to just how good Aaron Glenn has been with how little he's had to coach with. So if I'm those guys, yes, there's a good chance that both of them leaves. But if I'm looking at this, the best situation is staying in Detroit next year. Both these guys are still young as coordinators, and there's going to be better opportunities, maybe equal opportunities, but you're going to have more cap space and better quarterbacks to draft with and a better talent in the draft pool. Then there's not that many free agent signings you're going to be able to go and get this offseason down in free agency. It's just not a good year to be looking for head coaching jobs.
This is where I'll agree and disagree with you. I think you're right in the point that if they come back, it's great for them and they're going to have a better opportunity. This is where I disagree. If they are offered those jobs,
they will be, though.
It's not guaranteed. Again, if New Orleans, to the point that I've brought up here, New Orleans, if they want to go an offensive mind and they take Joe Brady, AG doesn't get offered that job. Joe Brady does. That's where I say, hey, if you don't get offered that job, he's coming back. Like, I think if Ben Johnson's offered the job that he wants, and I'm sure him and his family, like, they have gone 2 years without taking a head coaching job. And I credit them for doing that. Like, not a lot of people in the NFL are able to say, hey, I'm gonna stick this out. And I'm with you, Klotz, like the situation. And you know what the thing is? Like, you can say this every year. Like, next year, what are we gonna do? Are you gonna say that, like, this is your take, Klotz? Like, are you gonna leave next year and say the same thing? Like, hey, the next year, this is the best position in football. Like, it's gonna be the same thing year after year after year after year with the way Brad's built this team. So at some point, they're gonna have to step away from it if they want to do their own thing. I think that going into the offseason, I think Ben Johnson may have 1 or 2 teams written down in his little journal. These are the teams I talked with my family about. These are the teams that I've looked at their GM or potential. I know their owners. I know what their money looks like, their quarterback, their defense, their offense, the cap space. And he's like, this is a team I'm willing to go to and coach. This is a team I'm willing to go to. And then I think AG has the same thing. And I think on his, I don't know who's on Ben's list because that's a mystery. But I think AG has his list where it's New Orleans, maybe the Jets. I wouldn't be shocked if that's not on his list. But he has like, hey, this is the teams I'll leave for. I agree with you to the point. If those 2 guys don't get offered the jobs that they have on their list, they both will be back. And like, I wouldn't be shocked at all when the Lions season's over if we get another alert saying Ben Johnson's returning to the Detroit Lions for another year. Aaron Glenn's returning. And that's because you're going to see, hey, Joe Brady has been offered the New Orleans Saints job. Mike Vrabel is the new head coach of the New England Patriots. Mike McCarthy is the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. And if that happens, like if these teams go different direction than those guys, which to me, I think it's 50-50. I think it's very, very good chances that, hey, it can go either way right now. That's when you see these guys return. I don't think it has anything to do with, hey, I have these offers on the table, but I'm just going to return to Detroit just because we have another Super Bowl team. Like, I think you're going to have that for the next 2 or 3 years. So it's like, if you have your job that you want, like Aaron Glenn, like, dude, let's be honest. Like, Klotz, you had to be honest with yourself. Like, he wants that job. I don't care what the defense looks like. Aaron Glenn's going to look at that job and say, yes, I will come and rebuild it. I don't care what the defense, look what the defense looked like in Detroit when Dan got there. I'm taking that job. I've lived in New Orleans. I've played there. I've coached there. I've been there. Like, he wants to be there. So I think that's at the top of his list. I think it just comes down to who gets offered those jobs. Because, I mean, you saw the Jets list. They have 15 guys they're interviewing.
Yeah, the Jets.
If AG wins out of those 15 guys, you don't think he's going to be like, really consider it? Like, yeah, I think he will. But I think that Saints one, they're going to have 10 guys they interview. If he gets offered that, he's taking it.
I'm leaning for AG. I'm leaning Saints or bust. I don't think he takes the.
That's where I'm starting to go to. The Jets, I feel like you don't want to go.
No. If I was the Saints, I mean, again, nothing against AG, I would be going offense because look at when they were successful, they had Sean Payton, great offensive mind. So you probably lean that way, but it just makes too much sense. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm not giving opinions on what I would do. I'm giving opinions on what I think will happen. I think AG to the Saints makes a lot of sense. And shout out to Ball Don't Lie ETN, because he brought it up today when I did the live stream about Ben Johnson to the Patriots. And if they don't get Vrabel, like it makes a ton of sense for him, you know.
Yeah.
And
I think Vrabel's a done deal.
Yeah, and it probably is. But besides the Patriots, I don't see another job another job that makes sense. I mean, I just don't.
The Bears, that's the only other one. But again, I don't think it's good.
Everything it goes against everything Ben said he wanted.
See, that's where I have to go against you on that again, Klotz, because the rumors are right now the only two teams that he's wanting to talk to. He told the New York Jets, "I don't want to talk to you guys." So there are reports out there, and in his circle has been released. Like he's specifically said, "New York, I'm out. Don't request me. I'm not going to talk to you." He has specifically said, "I want to interview with the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots." He is already interviewing with those two teams, knowing Ben Johnson. He wouldn't interview for them, just like with the New York Jets, if he didn't want to go there. So he obviously wants to go to Chicago. Like he's looked at. That's why I said I think he has that list of written down ownership, GM, players, cap space, draft picks, and I think right now it's the Patriots and the Bears, which sucks for the boys, man. I would
honestly have some disdain for Ben if he went to Chicago. I would. I can't.
I would hate that. Oh my gosh!
Dude, I would. He would instantly become I would prey on Ben Johnson's downfall immediately.
Yeah, you have
guys. You don't have to worry. Ben's not going to go to an organization with a bad quarterback. I mean, I'm not worried about
that ownership.
Love how he switched that around on us, huh?
We would never. But yeah, I don't know. The Bears thing, I think, to me is all smoke and mirrors. I don't know. It would suck for sure. I think the Bears are probably looking I think Mike McCarthy they're interviewing. It's oh gosh, I hope Mike McCarthy comes to the NFC North.
Mike back into that.
Who are the other Bears coaches that got requested?
I didn't see Ben, Mike McCarthy, Pete Carroll. I think was rumored. I don't know if that's they want
Pete Carroll.
Tampa's OC could be gone as well again this year. I forget.
Yeah,
his name
Liam something. Yeah, Cohen. Yeah. Former OC for the Rams.
Bears have requested Arthur Smith, Brian Flores, Todd Monken.
Please hire
Todd
Arthur
Monken
Smith.
from the Ravens.
Todd Monken.
Yeah, is that his name? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, he's old. He's old.
Mike Kafka, the OC for the Giants. They've requested a lot. They're being thorough. Mike McCarthy, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. Yeah, they've put a lot of requests in.
Yeah.
I think these guys. I just think it's just who wins these jobs. Like if Ben's offered Chicago, if that was on his list, I can't see Ben just being like, "Oh, they're on my list." No, I feel like if he's I know he interviewed for Washington last year, but I don't know.
Do you guys think Ben will be an elite head coach, or do you think he'll kind of? Because my thing is, I think Ben's a great offensive mind, but I wonder is he able to go down that McVay, Kevin O'Connell route, or does he kind of go down the Mike McDaniel route, where it's just great offensive mind, but as far as getting the boys fired up to go into in a playoff game, winning the division in tight moments, staying level-headed, that's where, especially because he's so young, I just don't know if he's a guy that will instantly.
Can I give him a comp? And I think this is gonna. We've seen Ben Johnson fired up on the side. We just saw last week the video come out, him absolutely fired up, screaming, running down the side. I think he ends up being, and maybe not I'm not saying he's going to be as good as a head coach. We have to see it first. How Sean McVay is, Sean McVay running up and down the sidelines with his players, kind of just like that. I think he could do that.
Okay.
Him doing those trick plays and running up and down the sideline with that culture, I do think he can be successful. With the offensive mind he has, and I just think he has the personality to where he'll adapt and I think it's that Sean McVay where he's just going to be he's very good with relationships and being, personable with guys.
I mean, I think Sean McVay's a very underrated leader of men. I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for that. He's just the X's.
Very good.
That dude, he's up there for guys want to play for him. ETN just said, culture guy.
So I think Ben can do coming from Dan Campbell.
I think Ben at his if he completely works out, he'll be Sean McVay. But even if let's say he isn't, look at the success Kyle Shanahan's had, and Shanahan's not a rah-rah guy. He'll be fine. You know what I mean? Even if he's McVay or he's Shanahan still made 3 Super Bowls. Yeah. And then McVay's
Kevin O'Connell right now
made a Super Bowl. Kevin O'Connell, yeah. I like that comp too. Because Kevin's more kind of just like steady going.
He can lead. He leads, man.
Lead guys. Yeah, and I think Ben, I know people are probably hesitant, but yeah, he's been around Dan Campbell enough. He's seen it. He knows what it looks like. I think he'll be fine.
And you see him on the sideline ripping guys. You see him yelling. You see him like you see the emotion.
He's a perfectionist.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like you see coaches where they're quiet and they're really good at their job, but then they don't show that emotion and then they end up getting fired. I think he's a guy where it's like he's gonna make sure that culture's there.
I think too, Mike McDaniel, man, he's just goofy. Like I don't think I think he's like one of one. Like he's just so goofy, man. Like he that dude never played the NFL. Hypothetically, if I did, I wouldn't want to play for that dude, man. Like there's no way. That dude doesn't get me fired up. Like I don't. If I'm on the sideline, if I'm a Miami Dolphin and I'm looking over and I see Mike McDaniel, I'm not going, yeah, we're winning. Like we have the advantage today. We have Mike McDaniel. Like he doesn't give me that at all. Like they should have fired Mike McDaniel, dude. I liked Mike McDaniel, but he doesn't have the qualities. He's more of he's just an offensive guy. You know, he's just good. He should be a part of a staff, like an offensive staff, like maybe be an OC or even at like worse than that, be like some quality control dude or like passing game coordinator. Like he's not built to be leading dudes like that based on what I've seen. He like he looks like he's just always on an edible. It looks like
he does. That's a great.
So
hey, can I play this video for you boys?
Yeah, go ahead. Let me see this.
Pistons game tonight.
Oh, hold on.
AG. Come on now with Mrs. Glenn.
Mrs. Glenn.
Standing ovation.
Come on now.
What a dog. So the people love it.
I know.
Unk was loving it.
Yeah, look
at Aaron Glenn. Look, he's sitting at the Pistons game like he was on the sideline at the end of that.
Shout out. That was Alex Crescenti, by the way, the video. I'll give some credit there.
I mean, this guy is just like the mayor. I mean, he really is. And you can tell AG has a game like that. Pistons like, you want to pop out? He's like, yeah, I do. I want to be out there. Let me be out with the people. All right. After that game, bro, I'd be walking the city. Like I'd be I mean, that dude feels like the fucking man right now. Yeah. What he just did yesterday. Like, come on.
Again, dude, I'll say it a million times, dude. That was the best defensive coordinator performance of the year. Any NFL.
I would say not even just coordinator in general.
That was unbelievable. Didn't give up a touchdown, and it's crazy because again they went on that 12-quarter stretch, or it might have even been more. It might have ended up being like 15, but that quarter stretch without giving up a touchdown, and you just didn't see that for so long, and then just out of nowhere yesterday, it was just like no touchdown given up. The field goals, like holding them to field goals. Being in the goal line 3 times and not giving up a touchdown, like AG was in his bag, dude, all week long, like prepping for the game, getting ready. Like it does not get much better than that, man. And he's doing it with those injuries. I think it's incredible.
That's great. AG at the Pistons game, and they won.
Come on,
culture, man. This culture in Detroit, it's changing a little bit.
18-18. Those Pistons are 500. Don't let them get above 500.
That's crazy, man.
Can I ask you guys? Did you guys take my bet tonight that I sent you guys?
I did. Yep.
We are. If people don't know this, I have been putting together. It's a new bet, and I'll start handing out to the people on my Twitter too. Booner's double doubles of the day. That's what I'll call it. Double doubles of the day, and it's just picking NBA players to get double doubles. And I hit it a couple nights ago. It was like plus 500. I sent another one today. It was plus 800. 5 guys to get double doubles. 4 of the guys, Jeff, have double doubles. All we need is Nikola. Is it Nikola Vucevic? Is that how is his name?
Vucevic, yeah.
We need Vucevic to get 2 more rebounds, and he's not in the game right now. It's the 4th quarter. Maybe. Oh, he's in the game now. They just subbed him in. There's 6 minutes left. Need 2 rebounds. That's it. And it's plus 850. Plus, I'll start giving it out to the people. I love that bet though. Just pick guys to get double doubles. Dudes get double doubles every night.
Yeah, guys average them.
Yeah.
That's you just had a crazy like come to Jesus moment. You're just like, I'm gonna start doing these double doubles, and they just been smacking. I don't know what's going on.
Crazy, dude.
It's incredible. Yeah, Vucevic. I don't know. I haven't checked any. I haven't even checked. I didn't even know Josh Hart hit his. He was plus money. Josh Hart.
I put Josh Hart in it. Josh, hey, he's been
boards or assists. I'd
boards.
have him in boards. Yeah.
Just double. It could be both. But Josh Hart, the last like 7 of his last like 8 games, he's had a double, and he was like plus 120. It's like throw him in the lay. Shout out I King.
I know I King's just joins right away. He's like, how can I just piss these guys off?
He's an opportunity.
Oh, it's funny. Hey, I had a fun show today.
Pistons too, man.
Yeah, I had a fun show today. I had Pistons won. J Hart, shout out to him, by the way, $2. Appreciate you. He says, what I say about that win streak, Hefe. I know, J Hart, you're right about that, my guy. You are right about that. Those Pistons aren't to be reckoned with right now. I'm just saying. Hottest team.
And two shout out to tonight. Actually, I think I haven't really watched a lot of WWE the last few
Monday Night Raw.
Where is this coming
Monday
from?
Night Raw. Klotz has the Real American Beer hat. They announced today they're the official beer, and they're our sponsorship for our Lions shows. Real American Beer is the official beer of WWE now going forward, and it started tonight in Monday Night Raw on Netflix. So shout out to the fellas over there, man. I saw that and I was like, we had known for a little bit behind the scenes stuff. We had known. I didn't know when it was going to come out, and it came out today, and I was like, whoa, that's big. The doc actually tagged me, and I was like,
crazy. Monday Night Raw.
Might have to go home and watch it tonight. I haven't watched UFC or not UFC, WWE in years probably since I was growing up. I'm going to tune back in. I'm going to watch it tonight once we get off the show here.
Hey, well, good show today, fellas. Appreciate you all. By the way, get your merchandise. New designs are already out. So NFC North, Kings of the North. I mean, the shirts are sweet. They're all on our website, officialctsports.com. Get your merch.
Dude, the merch is unbelievable.
Of course.
I just put it in the chat.
Subscribe, like the stream before you leave, and check out all of our content on our channel, uploaded daily. But until tomorrow, we'll be back. We have Corey Woods joining tomorrow. So Corey's joining tomorrow. Then we have the Doc Wednesday. So some guests this week. We're planning out for the rest of the week. But until tomorrow, we will catch you all. Have a great night.
Love you guys.